Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Audit and Control meeting to order January 18th. I'd like to welcome everybody here this morning. Also would like to welcome a new member to the Audit and Control Committee, so welcome.
Very good.
Wow, speech.
Speech.
Typical for
Good
a new
morning.
member to
I'm
give
Fred.
a big speech, so.
Yeah. We usually sing a song.
It's good enough.
Moving on, with no speech, if everyone's had an opportunity to read the minutes from the last meeting, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
In a
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Brings us to the privilege of the floor. Is anyone here today to speak to the privilege of the floor?
Negative.
No takers. We'll move on to our resolutions. Number one item is a tabled resolution. It's to amend the 2023 budget to implement the MORD project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. So the we can skip it and come back if Dr. Falk is going to come for anything else. If not, I can speak to it.
No, Lacy's here.
You gotta take her.
Come on
Dr.
down.
Falk can help you out. Good morning.
Morning.
It's good to be here with everybody. So I'm Lacey Wilson. I am the new Public Health Director. So I am here. I can speak a little bit on behalf of the tabled resolution for Dr. Falk. So basically, it's just tabling at this point because there are some other good options out there that he'd like to look into and have just a bit more time to ensure that the rollout and any potential build out or a new space is done properly and done very thoughtfully. So he has some good prospects on the table and has already had some meetings this last week in terms of potential spaces.
Thank you. Yes, in talking with Dr. Falk, he's just working away, as Lacey has stated, that he's just looking for all of the best options available and has some homework to do, and he's talking with different county departments to see if there's any brick and mortar places. He's trying to kind of lean away from the trailer option.
Right.
So the recommendation is really to do nothing with this resolution, and it will just disappear. But the funding is still available for him. He just has to come up with a project. He can retitle it, rewrite it, and bring it back to us when he has that time to do it. So
Yep.
we will bring this up at a future time. So,
Yes, yeah.
Dan, just, Lacey, I think the idea is good. I think we need to do this. I'm the chairman of public safety, and I had discussions with, with the director of emergency services during COVID and stuff. So this did come up then. But my concern is the long-term costs. We have initial funding or funding that could be used through ARPA for this. But what would be the cost to the county year after year after year? Okay, those would be my concerns. Okay.
And Dr. Falk would be able to speak, of course, more.
I understand.
concisely to that,
new.
right.
We'll defer to him, but
Right.
those are the concerns that myself and perhaps other legislators might have.
And I think, though, in general, too, there is, I mean, overall, a benefit to the county to have this space in general, just in terms financially as well, because of so many of the cases that we do have to send out of county. It's a major cost to the medical examiners that that we pay. So the morgue space does allow us a bit more flexibility there to take on some of our own cases that perhaps we don't have the space or the availability to.
Okay,
now.
that's true, but there's other options that I think need to be explored. We're talking about a new hospital in Dunkirk and Fredonia. Perhaps you could talk to them, the folks there, and see if you could, they could provide more morgue space, So there's other options,
Right.
okay? But long-term, I'm concerned of costs, reoccurring costs in the future.
I
Okay.
think that's the precipice for the tabling of the resolution, is to give Dr. Falk that opportunity to look into some of these options that are on the horizon, make the best choice.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for speaking to this, and we will move on to the next one.
Which I think is also,
Yes.
I'll just stay.
So, item 2 is local law introductory 1-24, a local law amending local law 1322, providing for a management salary plan for county officers and employees, RE Administrative Coordinator for the Department of Health.
So yeah, I'm here today, basically just to present, what's just a hand-in-hand exchange in terms of title for, our office. So as, of course, all of you know, public health has been demerged from social services. So the department had been formerly known as the Department of Health and Human Services. So we did have one title left in our department now that we're standalone, that was still titled as Commissioner or Assistant to the Commissioner of Health and Human Services. So of course, that title no longer exists because that department no longer exists. So we just needed to retitle this position. There's no changes to the salary range, so it still will stay the same management salary range. It's just basically, again, retitling now that we're standalone, with, of course, the great help of Debbie and Jen and the Human Resources team to make sure that we found a title that was appropriate and fit our department.
This is a fairly seamless transition in the sense that the position is already filled, right? And it's just switching titles, so the person maintains the same seniority and all that thing,
Yep.
sort of thing when they transfer. And
Yep. Yep, just more of a cleanup, technical cleanup.
any questions from the committee?
So the departments have been demerged, change in title, great. Has the job content changed in terms of hours workload?
So really, the content has not changed, substantially, but more so it's given us the opportunity to retitle to something that speaks more specifically to what the person really had been doing and will continue to do. More so in terms of that forward-facing communication with the public, a liaison with our other departments. It's much more of a umbrella departmental role, and not so much just an assistant to Dr. Falk or I. So it really speaks to that, some of those changes now that we are standalone, because some of those duties were shared with some of the Department of Social Services staff. And so now that we're standalone, it just speaks more specifically to our department.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next local law is local law introductory 1-24, a local law amending local law 1322, providing for a management salary plan for county officers and employees, or a deputy compliance officer.
Good morning, Patrick Slagle, County Attorney. So we have a compliance officer retired last year in May. And so we began recruitment for our new compliance officer. There's been 60 candidates that have applied to date. 13 of those have been contacted for a scheduled phone interview. 9 of those 13 have responded. 7 followed through with phone interviews. Actually, 1 did not respond to the request to reschedule. 1 did not even answer during the scheduled interview. 3 of those have proceeded to scheduled face-to-face interviews. 2 of those went through on-site interviews, and actually 1 didn't even show up. Unfortunately, none have been found qualified to really serve as a compliance officer. That's just kind of a rundown of what we've been trying to do to get a compliance officer. Since the compliance officer had retired, our HR director has been serving in that role, meeting with the compliance committee, handling any issues that come up compliance-wise, with Medicare, Medicaid billing, HIPAA breaches, things of that nature. It's really important to have that compliance officer. It's actually mandated. And so what this local law is aiming to do is to create this position of deputy compliance officer. it wouldn't be a new position per se, but kind of an add-on to already functioning department head. As you can see, it's a wide range, and the idea is to give this stipend to someone to act as a deputy compliance officer should the need arise when we have a compliance officer in the future. If that compliance officer retires, moves on, the deputy compliance officer can take over, and that stipend can shift then based on the responsibilities they take on. Right now, there'd be a higher stipend because the individual serving this capacity is doing more work, is doing the function of a full compliance officer. Should we hire a compliance officer, there'd be some training, and you'd see that stipend slowly going down to the lower value. So that's what we're proposing right now. Again, we don't have a compliance officer, and so there's that savings there because we're not paying a compliance officer. We'd just be paying a stipend to an individual to just take on that role.
Sure, Patrick, how many hours do you think that this, or would add to someone's current workload?
You know, it's a management position, and so it's, you know, we don't really look at the hours, we just look at the job and completing the tasks on hand. I know currently the HR director is serving this capacity, and, you know, I know that, you know, nights and weekends are often spent going over things. Again, you know, the idea is to, one is to recognize someone's work that they're putting all these hours to do this work, is to compensate them for that additional time. And two is also set up, you know, succession planning so that in the future, we're going to continue to recruit for a compliance officer. We want a full-time compliance officer. The idea is once you have this in place too, you know, if something ever happens to a compliance officer, we're not, again, scrambling, trying to find a replacement or asking people to come in and fill in this duty. We can have this deputy already assigned, and we can increase the stipend and say, okay, take over these duties while we recruit, and then once we recruit and train, you can go back to just being the deputy in the wings there to help out.
Patrick, the previous compliance officer, I'm sorry, what was her name?
Deb's on.
Deb, okay. That's what I kind of thought. Would she be interested in working part-time for the county? I know in the past we've had people retire and then come back and work for the county. Is that a possibility, or do you think we absolutely have to have a full-time compliance officer?
We absolutely need a full-time compliance officer.
Oh,
You know, one of the
okay.
things that she had was involved with before she left was creating the compliance committee. I serve on that committee as well.
Okay.
They continue to come down the state with new compliance regulations. We need that full-time person there.
Okay.
As to who may be interested, I couldn't comment on that. I'm not sure.
But you had 60 people apply, and you haven't got anybody that looks good.
Right. You know, and when we post these positions all over, and you can have anyone apply. I mean, you know, whether they're qualified or not, you know, people applied, and then we look to make sure that the person's going to be qualified, can serve in that capacity. It's a very important position, you know, to talk about HIPAA breaches and how to respond to that, you know, how to make sure that our Medicare, Medicaid billing is accurate so that we're not being, you know, audited or investigated by state or federal authorities for improper billing and you know, reporting issues.
Patrick, are we kind of mandated to, it says, you know, we're mandated to have the position, but what if it's not filled? Are we kind of mandated to have a backup plan as well, or?
Yeah, you know, it's important. And again, right now, you know, as soon as there was that retirement, the HR director really kind of took over and made sure that we could meet those qualifications and meet those mandates, and it's been serving that capacity. So if there is a HIPAA breach, if someone wants to report something, we have a named compliance officer that they can go to. So right now it's about, one is making sure that we're compensating individuals for those additional work, and two, making sure that if this is implemented, then you have that planning so that in the future it works much better. Again, there's a couple ways that this could happen. You know, one way is to say, well, then we're going to take an individual and who has a job already and have them work 80% in that job and like 20% in compliance capacity. But that gets difficult, and you know, salaries don't match up, and it's hard to juggle. What this is like just an add-on stipend. So they're still serving their full capacity in whatever job they have, and they take on these additional duties. And we already, This model is what we already have is a deputy county executive. It's an add-on title. You know, you don't have someone who's just a solo deputy county executive. I have that add-on title, so it just, that's not my full-time job is, you know, deputy county executive. It's an add-on title so that if there's a need, I can step in and take on some duties there.
Okay, but Patrick, if you're going to have somebody do 80% of their duties and then 20% of the compliance responsibilities, then why couldn't you have the somebody come back part-time, the former compliance officer?
Well, that'd be one way to do it, and, you know, as we worked out the scenario and the numbers,
Okay.
that didn't work out. That wasn't a good way to take someone who's already 100% of their job, say again, the HR director, and say, we'll only do 80%, because then you have to fill in that other 20% of the HR director responsibilities with somebody else. And so this is a much more efficient way to say, keep doing your full-time job, take on these additional duties as you can while we continue to recruit. You know, the whole idea is, again, we really are looking for another compliance officer. So whether, again, we find a part-time compliance officer, so maybe we have a part-time compliance officer and this deputy director, and they work together to fill those roles. This local law really looks to make sure that we're filling that gap so that we're compensating someone who's carrying this load of work in the meantime while we search for that position.
Okay, but just to be clear, have you talked to the former compliance officer to see if she'd be interested in doing this part-time?
I have not talked with her. I'm not sure if she's included in these numbers or not. You know, I can pass that on, obviously, to.
I would, because I think she did an excellent job. I think,
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to.
no,
She-
go
We
ahead.
did speak, she wanted to consult at a considerable salary, so this is, the committee was already formed, and in the absence, this is what we felt was the best way moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, PJ.
Yep.
Mr. Johnson, do you have a question? Well, no, I think you answered it as you were going, they're just going, or haven't done this, going from 60 to 13 in these days, fine, it happens, but going from 13 to 0 was kind of disappointing. Is there a root cause to that?
You know, it's a difficult time right now with recruitment. Obviously, there's, you know, many jobs out there, and, you know, whether it's just you have people who just click, you know, because we post on it, I believe it's Indeed that we post. So with those kind of job sites too, you just like click and send your resume out to tons of different, you know, applications, and whether or not they're really qualified or they're even really interested, you're seeing it where you think you have a whole bunch of people. I know in my capacity, looking at attorneys, you know, when you find a couple, it's great. You sit down with a couple and they have 3 other job offers as well. And so it could be very different factors that why we fall down that far. But, you know, again, we just don't want to take anyone. We want to make sure the person's qualified and can take on that job.
If I could, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
to piggyback on that, you know, the compliance officer position, it's happening more in healthcare, and it's sort of a caveat of what we would have here, a lot to do with federal regulations, state regulations, and to Patrick's point, to reiterate, is this compliance position is a challenging position to find across the field, even in healthcare, but it is a very detail-oriented person, a lot of responsibility, a lot of liability on this individual moving forward. So to the point, we have to make sure that it's the right person who understands what compliance is. You know, you might have somebody that's has a great skill set in maybe some of the attributes, but putting it together to actually fit the role of compliance officer, we found people are falling short. It makes it very challenging for such a demanding spot. And the reasoning we went this direction is because the committee is there. So, you know, many eyes looking on something has been assisting. So it's not only falling on the HR director's position, but the committee itself coming together. And even when the compliance officer we found, the committee will still remain and still function, because that many more eyes looking at things, looking at our billing, looking at, and again, we've talked in the legislature, we reported last month about compliance even in grants. Those are the types of things that really puts a great deal of liability on the county, and that's something we want to make sure we're reducing. But it's challenging. Compliance officers are very hard to find.
And to piggyback on, and County Executive mentioned working with contacting the previous compliance officer, I had contact with an attorney who was interested, who could say they have compliance experience, but again, their part-time rate was far over, almost double of what we'd pay a full-time compliance officer, and unfortunately you're seeing that. And so, and again, on that, on the committee, I serve on the committee, the deputy Commissioner of Social Services serves on there, Dr. Falk serves on the committee, and several other individuals as well. So it's a good committee that also provides support to the compliance officer, and in this case, the deputy compliance officer.
So just to kind of formalize, you know, we need the compliance officer, we employ we have. But if we ask someone to fill that position for a few months, I think that they're due some compensation for that. So that's what you were doing here today with this local law. So
Correct.
I'm in agreement with it. Any other comments, questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move into our next proposed resolution. It's amend capital budget for underground fuel tank removal.
Morning.
Morning.
Tom Walsh, South and Center Chautauqua Lake Sewer District. What we have is a 10,000 gallon underground fuel tank at the South and Center Sewer District. The tank was originally designed to feed the oil to the furnace that heats the building and an emergency generator that provides power in case of a power outage. A couple years back, we did remove the oil-based furnace, and now the oil, or 10,000 gallon underground tank only feeds the generator. We are not under state mandate to do this, but DEC suggested that we move this direction, so in that, we are moving in that direction. We did hire a firm to come in and look at the design, and they will be removing the 10,000 gallon tank. In that design, we need a 2,000 or to 25,000 or 2,500 capacity to feed the generator. So in doing so, we went out to bid for a contractor to install a 2,500 gallon fuel tank above ground on a concrete pad to fuel the generator. The bid came back at $450,000. That's not a relevant number. So we put it out to bid again. Again, the same bidder, $450,000. That's not a real number. Speaking with Tim Card, we spoke and the bridge crew came down and poured a concrete pad. We decided, the staff at the South and Center, we're gonna go ahead and do the project. Tim sent the crew down, poured a pad, and speaking with the crew, there was a tank at the highway department that Ken France had. So we talked to Ken, that tank was for sale, it was brand new, he bought it and did not need it. And so we started there, some things, and so now the sewer district is installing all the plumbing and appliances at a price of $93,000. That is our budget going forward, and that's where we are today.
Questions, comments?
Tom, so that tank that you got, that was from the North County facility there?
It was,
They had bought it, but they didn't need it?
well, there was a bit of a dispute as to, from what I'm told,
Okay.
they were directed to buy the tank. And then as the,
Who directed
I
them to?
believe the DEC directed them to buy
Really?
the tank.
Okay.
And as it to fruition or whatever, it actually came to that they did not need the tank. So it was a very clean move, and they brought it right over and dropped it off on the concrete pad, and it worked very well, so we're moving in that direction.
So from 450,000 down to 93,000.
That is correct.
Thank you.
So does this include, so this includes just the installation of the new tank? Does it include
All the
any,
appurtenances, everything.
does
So
it
what-
include,
what-
does it
Okay.
include removing the old tank?
That is already budgeted
Okay.
with Labella, and they will be removing that tank. I believe it costs about $87,000 total.
Okay, so this whole project in sense is going to be an additional 87,000. Did you say 87 or 90?
It was 87 for the tank removal and the engineering,
Yes,
and then this is an additional
okay.
on top of that.
93.
Correct.
We haven't seen the 87 though yet.
Yes.
have-
that
We
was-
did.
That was approved 2 years ago.
Okay, a couple
Yep.
years ago. Okay. And that will be done after this is all finalized,
Correct. Once
right?
this is in place, then we can go ahead and remove that fuel tank.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
He already drilled me yesterday.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is amend Carts Hub Capital Projects and Count.
Stainless steel jacket, full tank installed for $5 a gallon. Brand spanking new.
Mr. Cart.
Good morning.
No, I have one, thanks. I actually framed it, so I had to take it back out of the frame. Here.
Good morning, Tim Carr, Director of Public Facilities. In front of you, I guess what we're looking at is the Carts Hub project, which has started a couple years ago, I guess, and I inherited. So the bids came in at $850,000 for the renovation of the Carts Hub. And what we're asking for is an additional $155,000 to complete the hub, okay? And just to go down through the rundown of all the finances of that project, over the years, we have altogether through the Excel Transportation Grant, which is a fully funded grant from the state that is we don't have to refund, a total of $605,612 that the Carts has received, okay? In addition to the $100,000 that we've been awarded for ARPA money, and now this an additional $155,000 that we're asking for gets us to $855,612, okay, which will be enough to complete the hub project. The other thing I would like to mention, I think when we first initially started this project, I think we were looking at $500,000. But with the delay with the city and getting the tanks removed, and we are where we are today, okay, at this number. So that's in the picture there, it shows you what the garage currently is and what it's going to be. And with the project starting and hopefully with meeting with the contractor here shortly to be completed by fall time of this year. Any questions? Thoughts? So totally, I guess, you know, the initial cost of the building was $134,000 roughly. And then we had to pay back taxes of $18,000, which that money also was paid out of the Excel grant program from the state. So I guess in real numbers, you know, we're looking at total costs as far as county dollars of $250,000 for this project, if that makes sense.
How many, excuse me, how many square feet roughly?
Is that building? I honestly can't answer that, Dan. I could find out.
It looks kind of small in the pictures. It doesn't look like a
Yeah,
huge
it
building.
is. It is a small building. It's an old gas station right across from City Hall.
Yep, okay. It's a lot of money for this little building.
And again, just a little bit of help with
It's the
Tim.
location.
Well,
It's the
yeah,
location.
location.
Yeah,
You got to remember the history of this is that this, as Tim had said, there was a purchase because Carts really had no home in downtown Jamestown. The focus was to stay there. Assistance from Gabby. There were a lot of people working together with this project. And as Tim had said, DPF Director Bentley began this project. We had approval from the state to get this going. We unfortunately had to rely on the previous administration in the city of Jamestown to get those tanks out of the ground. And 2 years later, the tanks finally came out. And 2 years later, the cost of this building doubled. So it was unfortunate, but you know, there was a joint venture. It was going to be an incubator, a small business incubator, all those things, and nothing really ever came to fruition other than, unfortunately, a lot of delay. So, you know, again, this is going to provide, you know, a much needed hub as CHQ Transit starts to develop more technology, you know, different things we're trying to implement with Tim and Michelle Westfall. I think it's unfortunate we're in this position, yes, but again, circumstances are what they are.
Questions, Mr.
How
Wilhelm?
much skin in the game does the city of Jamestown have?
They removed the tanks. For moving forward, they don't have anything.
Well, the thing was, I just wanted to let you know too, that it was really a kind of dilapidated rundown building that was boarded up. I mean, so
I've seen it.
the before picture is doing it really justice, you know what I mean? This is gonna be a great thing for the city, I'm just saying,
I think probably a realtor took those pictures and enhanced.
probably.
You know, a question on sense of how is this CHQ Transit doing this year? This last year, we've increased the revenues. There's some, we're picking up the slack a little bit of the community need for some transportation and stuff. You know, how are we doing with the transit? And, you know, in sense that, you know, the building is going to be fully utilized in sense that we need the hub. And we're also working at paying for the hub by itself, you know.
I think the ridership is up, you know, Michelle can attest to that. Believe it or not, if you go down there and sit for a day, just sit in the parking lot and just sit and watch the people that come in and out of there, it's a steady flow all day long with all the riders coming and going. It's a definite need in the city.
You know, that's what I like to, you know, you look at the dollar amount and you say, well, that's a lot of money for the building and what it is. And, but also, I guess it's the community need, and if we can justify spending the money for that community need and the continuation of that need.
And I don't think it's just the people for the city. I mean, I've been in there and there's people getting in on the bus going all the way to Dunkirk. You know, so they're traveling all through the whole county. It's just not in the city.
Any other questions or comments?
Dan, David and I were just talking. This is right across from City Hall. This will be an upgrade, I think, to this area, the city of Jamestown, especially 3rd Street. So, yeah, I think this is a good thing.
Can we put a second floor on it and put the social services department in there and health department?
We're looking.
We're working on that too.
Okay.
That opportunity for this building is a little too small.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. I will keep you updated.
Thank you. Next proposed resolution is compromise of disputed chargeback account amount.
Good morning, Patrick Slagle, County Attorney. The resolution before you is to authorize a settlement with the Frederick Central School District regarding chargeback of taxes dispute. Essentially what happened was there was a parcel that was being taxed. It was switched owners, and then both parcels were being taxed as if there was 2 separate owners. And this occurred, as the resolution states, from 2004 to 2021. The issue was discovered, and so there's a chargeback to Frederick Central School in the amount of $85,047.97. Frederick Central School objected, retained legal counsel, and we've been working with that legal counsel to try to resolve the issue. You know, different views of the law. There's various different tax laws that come into effect here. Tax law is extremely complicated and robust. So after numerous phone calls, emails, Zoom conferences, a settlement was offered. You know, clearly Fredonia wanted to say you could charge us back 1 year. We felt and still feel that we can charge back the full amount. Offer was thrown out maybe 3 years, maybe 6 years. Eventually we settled on 6-year amount. And so therefore we'd like to have this approved so that we can enter into that settlement for that chargeback amount.
Of the 36,000.
Correct. 36,000 would be the amount we can charge back. You know, a question was raised previously under admin services. You know, what about other municipalities? Obviously, we take each case as unique and separate. You know, other municipalities may have been affected by this, and they may come forward and look for other settlement. And we'd talk with them. You know, clearly, again, we're not admitting that we were wrong. We still feel that we could charge back the full amount. But when we look at these kind of issues, we talk with legal counsel, we talk with their legal counsel, and we determine, what's the best path forward. I mean, this is a significant amount that Fredonia was likely to proceed to litigation, so we have to take that into effect. Other municipalities, maybe it's a lower amount and there wouldn't be that litigation out there, so it may not be worth the hassle for another municipality to come forward and try to dispute it. Again, our position is that, we're rightfully able to charge this back, but we have to take each case as it comes before us and do what's best. Obviously, we don't want to engage in unnecessary litigation that could actually exceed the amount that we would be able to even charge back. And so, based on our legal analysis, we felt this was the best path forward for the county.
And it's good neighbor kind of you worked it out, and would we like to collect everything? Sure. Would they want to pay nothing? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of came to an agreement, and moving forward, it's going to be correct, right? So the issue still no longer exists. So.
Correct. And that's important too. Is we want to be good neighbors. I mean, obviously, there's no harsh feelings here. Just there's two different points of view on the law, and that's if everyone agreed on the law, there wouldn't be any need for lawyers, and who'd want that?
Yeah. Keeps us in.
Exactly.
Mr.
Questions,
Chairman,
comments?
just as a point of clarification, this was an error, this was created by an error done many years ago by a town assessor. So this was no fault of the county or the county staff, just to clarify.
Thank you. Yeah, that's correct.
Questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is reallocating salary grade for resource assistant, human resources.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Debbie Makowski, Director of Human Resources.
And Deputy Compliance Officer as well. You could add for your
I
title.
guess
For the
that
time
is
being.
to be determined. So this proposed resolution is to reallocate the salary grade for the title of Resource Assistant, Human Resources, from a grade 12 to a 14. This title is only used in the Human Resources Department. The individual in the title has taken on a lot of reporting and auditing functions that were originally handled by a more senior member of the Human Resources Department. An upgrade is appropriate considering the additional higher level responsibilities. And to answer the question that I know is coming, this was proactively budgeted for 2024. So this proposed resolution would not have an impact to the approved 2024 budget.
Okay.
Everybody's looking through the desk, what's going on?
Terry was looking for a pen,
I'm
but
looking
I
for
did
a
find
pen.
some Swedish fish in there. Geez, I didn't know.
Okay.
The box isn't opened yet, so don't open it. The Swedish fish,
I saw that.
not for you.
Questions, comments? You must have explained it very well. Hit all the dots. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Find my pen. Next proposed resolution is reallocating salary grade for communications technician trainee, communications technician, senior communications technician, and communications system coordinator.
Yep, that one was a mouthful. I'm not sure if the typo was corrected or if I need to point out there, at least as of last night, there was a typo in the first resolved.
If they had treated it as a typo, then it will be
It's
correct.
done, okay.
Which we did last night.
Okay, perfect, okay. So this proposed resolution, is to reallocate, salary grades for 4 communication titles, that are specific within the sheriff's department. The proposed upgrades would align the assigned grades to the so that these titles would match titles in their counterpart IT department. I know this is between the sheriff's office and human resources, and the individuals in holding these, the titles. This has been a discussion item for probably 6 to 8 months, I believe. So I do know that there is no impact to the, upgrades within the 2024 budget. This was proactively budgeted for for 2024.
Dan, this came up last night in public safety. One of the questions that I had, Deb, and the committee had, were the increase in 4 grades for the folks there. But you studied this, you think this is warranted?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. The titles between the IT department and the sheriff's department, while they're not the exact same title, their duties are similar but different, if
Okay.
that makes sense. One is more focused on county-wide systems.
Okay.
The other one is emergency services, sheriff's department, corrections, specific to the sheriff's department.
Gotcha.
And I should point out, I was mistaken in last night's public safety committee meeting. I know.
How so?
Where I said that all the positions were filled. There is one vacant. I didn't catch the head nod in the back of the room saying, no, no, no.
Next time you'll look.
I will, I will. I'm watching.
There you go.
In the salary ranges that have been established here in the compensation, is that in comparison to other counties, but also outside agencies, non-government related, how are those salaries in comparison?
So, as far as the salary comparison, these are both CSEA 6300 titles. Between the sheriff's department and IT. All of them fall under CSEA 6300. Yeah, correct. So as far as comparing wages, we went through that process during our recent renegotiation with CSEA 6300. So they are comparable. However, in going through this process, the sheriff and I discovered that there are some counties who use the same within their county, same or similar titles within the sheriff's departments. However, there are some counties that have chosen to outsource this work. And what they're finding is there's a higher cost, and there's also an increased wait time when they have work orders that need to be done. So I think it's definitely in our best interest to keep this in-house.
Sure, and no, the salary, and the answer to the question about the salary, how does it compare with those? When you say it, I understand that typically there is a greater fee when you outsource, and also the availability. You need something done, you have someone that just does it. When you put out a request, it takes a little time to fill that request. And usually those agencies are more expensive, but maybe the employee itself isn't getting the full fee, right? But, so
Correct.
salary comparisons, how is the county faring in sense of its salary comparison?
Yeah, so when we went through negotiations with CSEA 6300, we did look at, title to title, compared with other counties, compared external, and we were right on par.
Okay.
And, keep in mind, the IT equivalent titles are already in existence within 6300. So this is just basically going through the process of making sure that they are matching their counterpart in the other department.
Other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is authorize acceptance of funds from the Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance for the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program for fiscal year 2023.
Good morning, Riley Enlow, Fiscal Supervisor. This first resolution is a payment award from the Office of Justice Program for the fiscal year 2023, basically to reimburse the jail for our wages during the periods of 7/1/21 to 9/30/2024. This is already budgeted in the 2024 budget, so there's no budget amendment that's needed, and it's just a payment. It's not a grant. We don't have to spend certain money. They already analyzed all of our wages that we've already spent.
Questions, comments?
Is this something we get every year?
Yes, I believe on the computer side, it shows we've been receiving this since 2006. So it could have been prior to that, but every year we do get it.
What does the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program do?
I'm not 100% sure that in the contract it doesn't really explain what it is, but basically they take all of our payroll data for all the corrections officers and anybody that works in the facility with inmates. It takes all of the inmates housed in the jail on this particular time frame and calculates how much it would cost for an inmate per day, and that's what the payment award is. Other than that, I don't really know much more about the calculation.
Okay. What is that number?
6.
No, I
well,
mean, in sense that what it calculated, how much does it cost to house an inmate per day? Or don't you know what?
I don't know. They don't tell me that. Jen and I had just talked about this yesterday, and we weren't really sure how they made that calculation.
Yeah, so it's largely based on the correction officers' salary costs. Somehow they come up, they have some sort of a formula that they use. I don't know what it is, but it's something that takes into account our costs at the county level for the COs in comparison to how many days those undocumented aliens are in our jail. So it's some sort of a mix between those two elements, but the corrections officer salaries are what it's largely based on.
Any number.
Take it.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just nice to be able to put what this program is and what it's doing instead of just approving the money. So I like to ask a question of what we're actually accepting and what it's doing. So, and then next year when it comes in front of us again, we might remember. I might know exactly what this is. So we'll ask again. Maybe. And it'd be, and I might ask again because
So you got a year.
It's not a
to get
real
all the
obvious.
answers.
Any other questions?
Yeah. What performance obligations do we have or strings attached to this?
None.
Any, or just provide the data?
We don't have any strings attached to this. I guess it's just a payment. We receive it, we draw down the funds, and that's it. The payment's closed out, and we move on to the next fiscal year, which I just did. I just submitted all of the wages and inmate housing days for 2024. So we're waiting to hear back for that.
Hallelujah.
That's what we like.
No questions asked, just
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution is the amended 2024 budget to implement jail property packaging system project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act.
So this resolution is for an ARPA project for a jail property packaging system. Basically, it's a vacuum sealer and I don't know how many bags that come with it, but bags for this first cost. And it's for inmates' property when they first get booked into the jail. They put their property in this package. It gets sealed. It's tamper-proof. So when an inmate leaves, they get their package, and they can't say that, oh, there was items missing from their belongings when they first came in. And they can't say, like, oh, we changed the logs or anything, because I guess it's happened in the past. Currently, we're just using some type of plastic bag, putting it in a property storage room, and logging it in. I don't know if it's a handwritten log or if it's in the computer. I'm not 100% certain on that. But right now, there's room for error, room for things to go missing right now. With this system, there wouldn't be room for that. And it also limits the contact that the officers would have with the inmates' belongings. They wouldn't have any contact with it. The inmates would be sealing it up themselves, and the corrections officer would take the sealed bag and put it into the property room. for future costs. The only cost that we see is about $1,000 in the operating budget, and that's just for purchasing the bags themselves.
What's the drug that's going in the streets these days that if you handle wrong will
I
get-
don't know, fentanyl maybe, I think. Yes, fentanyl.
And this
Yes.
deals with that risk?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
So I gather there's certain risks of handling criminal belongings that they're contaminated with high concentrations of fentanyl?
Yes,
And so you don't really want to do that?
correct.
So just making sure that these
Yes,
bags
that
are-
would limit that. We wouldn't be, the corrections officers wouldn't be touching it at all, so they couldn't come in contact with it.
Good point, Fred.
No, and that's helpful so that it sets, it'll take a little bit more of that chance of the contact. Also, the jail does have some pretty fancy screening equipment that those inmates do go through, that hopefully that stuff is caught before they even get to this point. It's all a procedure, I suppose, of when they go through what and when and how, but this is definitely a way to help mitigate any of that also. Things can be missed, so.
And it saves room in your closet.
Sucks it all together tight. Yeah, amazing what a vacuum sealer can do. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is amend emergency services 2024 budget, 2024 eclipse preparedness. So just to start with a little history on this, so last night this did go through public safety. They had a lot of questions, comments, and concerns. It did not pass. So today we are looking at this, and I'm sure that through this, Noel's done a little more research and has some other information for us. But first, let's hear what this is all about, and I'm sure we'll have some questions.
So, Noel Gutman, Director of Emergency Services.
Corey Lymaster, Senior Communications Technician with the Sheriff's Office.
So this resolution is born from, trying to prepare for April 8th. As we know, April 8th will be the total solar eclipse that our county be one of 29 counties of 62 in the state to be in the path of totality. And our research has shown that our county is going to be greatly impacted by tourism, population, travel, transportation issues. In the very nature of emergency services is to plan for and try and identify things that might happen. So in that planning, I've identified some things that I would like to be able to purchase to help mitigate some situations that could come up and try and make our that whole weekend and that day of April 8th a little easier, a little more emergency prepared. So going down the list, the first whereas there talks about the Disasterland computer software. That's computer software we're currently using. I'm looking to get some enhancements to that software to help with the planning and execution of that event. One of my concerns, and I don't have any concrete belief at this to know this is going to happen, but it's a concern I think may happen, is there may be some reimbursable costs from the state or from the feds due to the activity that day, and some additional computer software that the DLAN would be able to do would help be able to track and inventory those costs. Is one of the big concerns I'd like to have for that day. The second one is the EMS mass casualty supplies. Obviously one of my concerns is the safety of everybody, wherever we're at in the county, and in our planning stages, I'd like to be able to position caches of EMS and MCI type equipment around the county to, quite frankly, I want to have it and not use it, because if we use it, I mean, people are getting hurt. But I'd like to be prepared by having some more of those additional supplies that can be positioned, strategic locations. The third one, it's called the FirstNet Compact Rapid Deployable. And that's why Corey is here. He's going to be able to better explain this in much more greater detail than I can, and I'm going to turn it over to Corey right now.
So what this unit is it's basically a cell site on wheels. It's not much bigger than the table that we're sitting at now. It can be hauled by any SUV or pickup truck with a trailer hitch. And it has 3 different options for an input into this device, either Ethernet, the internet connection that we already have in a building. It can use LTE or cell phone signal that's already existing, or as a last resort, it has a built-on satellite that will actually turn it into its own cell tower. We can use this by plugging directly into it. It also creates a hotspot, and it provides LTE coverage up to a 2-mile range of this device. The biggest idea behind this is for continuity of service. It does have prioritized usage. It will pass 911 calls from any cell subscriber as the #1 priority. So if there's an area where a cell tower is down, it will function in that capacity and pass it on to our dispatch center, including through the infrastructure that we already have and the towers we already have. It will also prioritize our data and our internet connection. So an example of where this could be used is if the county internet goes down, we lose a lot of the functions that are done in dispatch for any firemen. The I'm responding goes over the internet. If we have this and the internet goes down, it's a quick plug into the switch, either here at the county building or over in dispatch, and then we have that connectivity to the internet again, to where we can use I am responding, we can use e-justice. If a fiber is cut between here and Dunkirk, as another example, and the county offices up there lose their connection back to Mayville, we can roll this up there, plug it in, and get that connectivity back. So it has a lot more uses than just the solar eclipse event. For the solar eclipse event, its main priority would be supporting dispatch as well as the EOC, but it can be used in many different cases for planned events. Erie County has a few of these that they use for the Bills Stadium, so that way when there's a lot of inflow of people and it's taxing on the cell towers and the infrastructure that they already have, this provides the prioritized service for the first responders at the stadium. So it would do the same for us in a smaller capacity.
One of my concerns on the day of the eclipse, and that's why it's being brought up into this resolution, is history has shown from 2017 where the eclipse across the southern part of the country when it went last time, communication towers and cell towers were greatly congested and did affect the ability for people to communicate. And I want to try and mitigate some facts for our first responders and our command staff to be able to stay in touch that day. And that's why this is being brought up at this point, because every drill, every exercise, every real world incident almost always comes down to communication being the #1 issue that could have been improved or done better. And we're trying to find a way to make it better ahead of the event and future events.
So a question on the cost. You said we can plug it into places. Do we need the plugs on our buildings and cords?
No, so it is, like I said, about the size of this table. It's on wheels, like similar to the gorilla carts or the yard carts that they sell at Tractor Supply. So in the event that we would need to use it in this building, we could literally bring it straight into the man doors, plug it right in the IT room, and then it's literally just a quick plug from one to the other, a regular network cable, and then we would have that capability.
And then moving forward, what other expense would you see that this thing would be giving us in sense of maintenance or updates, that sort of thing?
So there is a recurring maintenance cost for this, but we anticipate that being, it is an allowable expense under the SIG communications grant that the Sheriff's Office administers for the county. So we would be looking at including that in the annual budget for that grant that we get every year. The recurring maintenance is $4,000, and that's included in the initial price. So that's the first year, and then there's the recurring cost. That includes the company that we'd be buying this from. They will actually send somebody to our county and do a yearly preventative maintenance check on it. And then our radio shop, working with the IT staff and emergency services, would also have to power this up once a month to make sure that because it handles the 911 traffic, it has to be activated so that it can make that connection to the dispatch center. And then there is the cost of the satellite service, which is also, it's a permissible under the grant, but in the event that something else is prioritized, either the maintenance or the satellite service over using the grant funds, the idea was to look at splitting it between the county departments that could use it. So emergency services, the sheriff's office, county IT, Department of Health, Board of Elections. So instead of one department paying the full $6,000 every year, you know, if each department would kick in $500, it's a lot more manageable. So
What department would actually own this thing, if you will?
Emergency services.
Okay.
We would keep it in our office and deploy it from there as needed, anywhere it needed to go.
and then the sheriff's office would assist with supporting it and the maintenance through the radio shop and the IT that's assigned to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jerry?
Dan, this is basically a large deployable cell phone unit. Very useful, but it does have some limitations. Corey, you mentioned that last night in public safety. The radius is what, 2 miles to possibly 4 miles?
Correct. So as it's spec'd out right now, the radius is up to a 2-mile range. Now, if you're using it in the capacity to where you're plugging directly into it, if we plug it in here in Mayville, then it would support, you know, any of the infrastructure that we already have. So it would, if it's wired, it would go past that 2-mile range, but the wireless signal itself for the cell phones and the Wi-Fi hotspot that it creates is up to 2 miles.
So if it was located here in Mayville, it couldn't service like Silver Creek?
Correct.
Okay.
There is an add-on that we are considering for future rounds of grant funding. This is the initial purchase, but then we'd like to purchase some additional equipment to increase the capacity that this has. And one of those devices would take it from 2-mile radius to a 4-mile radius. So it would double the coverage.
Yeah, the general intent of getting this is to support government and first responder operations, not necessarily to have an extra cell tower for the public to be able to tie into.
I understand, no, but there is the radius limitation of this unit.
Correct.
So-
And depending on the situation, you may be covered under existing cell tower that we have already. Or this could also be, and this would work in conjunction, it would pass the traffic to the local cell towers. It can be used in conjunction, or it can be used as a standalone device if it's somewhere where there's absolutely no cell signal, like in the middle of the woods, for a search operation. This could be deployed, and then anybody in that 2-mile radius that has a FirstNet device could then have cell coverage that they could communicate back and forth.
And that's a good point, because there's a lot of dead zones in our area. And let's say you're doing a search and rescue because there's a missing individual or a kid in the middle of the state forest and there's no service. Poses some challenges to the operation, for sure. You can't reach people, and you can't have live updates. I suppose we have frequency radios that are used, but not everybody would have one, and you have so it does there's certain uses that will prove to be useful down the road. So
Yeah, and this could be used to facilitate a command post or a staging area to where the cell connection would connect the command post to dispatch and other entities, but then the radios could be used in conjunction on a more local level, so that it could be a bridge between the two communication systems.
Other questions, comments? Anyone have any questions, comments?
Just in general?
Well, just the
Mr.
satellite,
Johnson?
the reason I'm asking this is the last two windstorms we had down in Westfield, I learned that Spectrum and Verizon are coaxial, and it just blew the whole thing away for a day. So your backup would be the satellite in that kind of situation if you were located in that area at that time.
Correct, and this is a FirstNet device, and in talking with Noel and with the sheriff, last Tuesday when we had the windstorm, our FirstNet signal never failed. We still had cell phone connections through AT&T FirstNet, where Verizon and Spectrum did have an issue. But regardless of the cell phone carrier, it will still pass the 911 calls. So,
Right, okay, satellite last resort.
And really, you could put that thing in Westfield, and it would help that Westfield Police Department. It would help the residents there to even put a call through a 2-mile range, really would cover the most of the population there.
correct, and I'm not sure if it did, but during the storm event, if Westfield Police Department lost their internet connection to dispatch, this could be put in at their facility, and then they'd be able to communicate with the data to our dispatch center, as well as the hotspot for, you know, the other responders outside.
Yeah, during that storm event, if we'd had this, I would have used it at the EOC on Tuesday. We with what you just mentioned, we'd lost internet connectivity at our office, and during that storm event, we were a registered emergency operations center with the state, and I lost all connectivity with them, and all the ability to transmit the information I needed to go to the state. So, had we had this, I would have been able to, maintain our continuity of operations that way.
Good.
And there are some of these devices that are owned by FirstNet that are staged throughout New York State, but those are prioritized based on the requests and basically who's going to benefit the most from it, which usually the urban area is going to win out more often than, a county like Chautauqua County. So,
So this is a good long-term asset,
correct, and it's going to benefit a lot of county departments. And
So I want to raise a question about the funding. I did ask a question about either of you last night if your individual department had any funds that they could put in versus using the full amount out of the unassigned fund balance. Were you able to? I understand that everything was probably closed up because, and you might not have had any additional time. So is the answer to that? Can the sheriff's department chip in any? Can the Office of Emergency Services chip in any extra, or are we still assuming that we're going to use the unassigned fund balance?
one thing that we can look at the sheriff's office is potentially using the E911 or W911 funds, which is the surcharge that everybody has on their cell phones and landlines. We can confirm if it's an admissible cost and, possibly use those funds.
Okay.
But I know that Noel was directed to have the resolution done this way, so.
Right. As far as additional funds, of our existing budget, I don't know that we could find any to that amount, to help with it. But, as to help, to back up what Corey said, as for the ongoing cost, we do receive different levels of grants to the state. And that's something we can look at we always try and find projects that fit in those state homeland security grants. That's something we would try and do.
So just a kind of a recap with the use of the fund balance. So, we obviously have some other funding sources that we could consider. Our ARPA accounts was questioned, but also it was X'd off because really we have about 20,000 unassigned in our ARPA account, and also there's a process that it requires. We can't just simply plug in that ARPA funding because there's a process, there's an ARPA committee, there's a review, there's other things on the list. So the ARPA funds really aren't available, and we are up against a bit of a clock because you guys need to order this, get it here, and get trained on it and then use it for the event that's coming up in a couple of months. Other area was questioned about maybe use of funding from the tourism account, our 3% fund, but Terry, I know you're chomping at the bit to answer that, so I'll have a
Not chopping exactly, but.
I'll have a rebuttal to whatever you're gonna say, so.
I'm sure you will. Dan, the funding source did come up last night, and myself and the Public Safety Committee thought that one of the funding sources we should look at was the 3% tourism funding, because we will have, I don't know, 25, 50, 75,000.
It's estimated between 50,000, possibly up to 250,000 people in our
Okay.
county that weekend.
Tourists. They're not buying homes.
That's an additional
They're-
people.
They're tourists.
It's not cloudy.
Yeah, it's not
The
cloudy.
weather, you don't know that you're gonna see that.
No.
The weather.
No.
That's right, yeah.
I can attest, in an overcast day in Tennessee, it was visible. It will be dark.
You will be in the dark.
But
I saw the video on multiple occasions from.
There's a 56%, a 50-year average history from National Weather Service of Buffalo is a 56% chance of clear skies that day.
okay, so
Anyway,
what?
the hotel rooms are all booked.
As of
They're all
yesterday, their a hotel room in the city of Jamestown was $800 a night.
Okay, so we're going to have a influx of quite a few people, tourists, basically. So I don't see why we can't use the tourism reserve fund for this project. And again, I want to commend you, Noel, and you, Corey. You guys are looking ahead. You're trying to make sure that the county's prepared. I think we can come up with some funding for you, although I do have some questions about some of the signs and stuff, because I think some of that stuff maybe we could share with other departments, like local fire departments, police departments, highway departments, whatever. I guess one of the concerns is that I have is that we don't expend a lot of money on one-time purchases that we're not going to reuse in the future, okay? But that was a possibility, Dan, as far as the funding source of the 3%. That came up last night, and that's where I'm leaning at this point.
Mr. Scudder?
Yeah, forgive the pun, but I'm a little in the dark over this.
Your clips.
No,
Your clips.
and I should have asked this might not be the place. It's gonna get dark.
Correct.
For how long?
3.5 minutes of totality, and about 40 minutes before, the 3.5 minutes, and about 40 minutes after it'll get light again.
Okay.
That's not the biggest deal about it. The big deal about it is the amount of people
Sure.
that are going to come into our county and our region.
Right.
And it's going to, whenever I talk about it, I always say, I hope that I'm wrong.
Right.
I don't
Sure.
believe that I will be, based on the research that I've done, reviewing all the after-action reports of communities much like ours. Traffic is going to be our biggest issue, by far.
Right.
And there's, when you do the research and read a lot of communities such as Chautauqua County across, in 2017, traffic was just horrible. And that's going to be the biggest problem. That's going to be for lack of a better term, the attack on infrastructure, stores went empty, restaurants went dry, gas stations went out. Traffic was just bumper to bumper for some places up to 16 hours. So it's the eclipse is not a threat. The eclipse is a historical and scientific significant event.
Right.
And it won't happen again for 120 years.
So
So
most
as
of
I
us
s-
won't be on the board to vote on this again.
Yeah, as I said last night, and I've said multiple times, we don't get a do-over on this. We get one shot at it, and hopefully we're prepared, and hopefully everything goes right. What we do now, and I think it's 2045, it'll be the next total solar eclipse in the country, and that's in the Southwest. And it'll be 120 years before it hits Chautauqua County again. So what we do now will be the blueprint for other people to see how to plan and prepare, much like I've been doing, looking at everything from 2017.
Right, and I understand that, and I'm all for safety. I guess my not confusion, but concern is we're buying a lot of equipment that's gonna be used now and in the future, and we're labeling it with the 2024 Eclipse preparedness. So after the, and I'm not downplaying it, but after the 3 or 4 hours, and I know traffic, I did hear you. I'm just saying, it gets dark, it gets light, it's over, and we have all this equipment, so.
Everything that we're asking for is equipment that will have a longevity use for us in the county.
Absolutely. So I'm just a little concerned if we're not putting the Eclipse tag on stuff we need anyhow. Does that make sense?
So can I just,
So that's why I'm debating where Terry's coming from. Do we take this out of tourism? Which the tourism is creating the event, or the event is creating the tourism to need the equipment for that short amount of time, but we're going to enjoy the use of it for years to come. Does that make sense?
Correct.
so I think Noel had put that eclipse preparedness in the title, in the sense that if there was a later identified as an emergency event, or by some sort of, and funding became available after the fact, that it could be plugged in because the title's there. Does that make sense?
Sure.
It's a possibility, yeah.
And that's what it did state last night, correct, that it was, you had that title on there for that
So I guess
specific
what I'm
purpose.
kicking around is, I'm not, if you guys say we need this equipment, I'm not here to say we don't need it. I guess it's where the funding's coming from that is what's a little
You know,
confusing.
another point to consider, and I very cautiously want to say this, because obviously I can't predict this, but reading the reviews from 2017, the community saw record income from sales tax and bed tax, and I think it's significant. You know, literally yesterday, I gave a presentation on the Eclipse to the Jamestown BPU, just so, you know, they had some understanding of it. And while I was there, I looked on a couple of different websites, and you know, the hotels, the named brand hotels in Jamestown were $800-900 for a single night, and it's been that way for quite a while, and that's that way in pretty much the entire path of totality. So, I think it's safe to assume that there will be some very significant income garnered from this event as well. Obviously, I'm not in any position to forecast what that is, but, you know, looking at the past after-action reports of communities, it was a very prosperous event for them.
I think it's important to note, so in looking at this resolution, I think if you take off the 2024 Eclipse preparedness, and you say, look, if we were purchasing this equipment for that specific event, I'm not so certain that I would be sold on that, because I think it's a pretty short-term experience, and I think we could probably make do. Now, there's a lot of probablys, right? So, looking at this now, is this going to be a piece of equipment and equipments, there's multiple pieces, for that the Office of Emergency Services will utilize all the time? And does the county want to make this sort of purchase for a day-to-day use, and it's now in our arsenal of equipment that we can use on a day-to-day basis? Eclipse preparedness out the window, and that's the point is do we need the equipment? And if you look at it, you've certainly sold it that we would certainly utilize it, and it would be in place for a lot of different events, and will it increase the safety of our county? It certainly will. And so you look at the fund, and you say, is the fund balance the place to take it from? And I think that using the fund balance is proper in this instance, because our tourism money, we're not using this for tourism in the future, and we're classifying as it is an essential piece of equipment on a day-to-day basis. Really, tourism unassociated, it's just an existing piece of equipment that our office, the emergency services, would be using. I'm not completed yet.
Okay.
And so I think using the fund balance is proper. So I just wanted to finish that that's where I feel the money should come from. And also, we do have a very healthy fund balance, and that's why we have the fund balances to utilize it. So I think the decision comes down to is, if we want to spend the fund balance money and purchase this equipment. It's really just a purchase of equipment above and beyond our budgeted expenditures for the year, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I could chime in really quickly, I will say that Corey had made a suggestion that's a very good one, as far as a possible alternative funding source that could contribute to the bottom line, and that being the Sheriff's Office's 911 reserve funding. The wireless 911 reserve has a very, very healthy balance, and I do believe that this would qualify, at least the wireless towers. I am very confident those would qualify as an expense. Obviously, that would have to be run by, discussed with the sheriff as well, but as far as, possibly some sort of a funding split or something to that effect, I mean, Corey's suggestion is a very, very good one, so.
Mr. Wolf?
No, Kitty, Kitty'd like to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what, Jennifer was saying, is that, if you deem these purchases are warranted and a good investment long-term, then, I do think that the fund balance is more appropriate than the use of occupancy tax. But again, splitting the funding sources, or even in the future, if you are successful and these can be covered under grants in the future, we can always amend the budget again to return the fund balance back to the fund balance, and then show that we now have grant funds to cover these expenses. So that's also a possibility if you explore, and we're successful in getting other grants.
Or we could pass the resolution utilizing fund balance, and then if the
Yeah.
sheriff agrees to contribute W911 reserve funds, we could amend the budget with that.
Correct, yeah. Or we may have surplus sales tax this year. As a result, we didn't kind of build in that. We were conservative in setting our revenue budgets for sales tax and, and such. But, there's a combination of things that we can do. But again, as Chairman Chagnon said, we could pass it today as the use of fund balance, and then amend the budget as other things come to fruition.
And agreed, and those are all very good points, because we can amend and adjust as time goes on, and if we find other resources. But the important thing today is making a decision in the sense that we are restricted in time, because they need to purchase this. It take 2 to 3 weeks to get this after it was approved next week at the meeting, and then also they have to get it, and that's if you can get it, and they can fulfill their promise, and then someone has to get trained on it, and I'm sure that there's probably a process of there's some internal things that need to happen, so the time thing is an issue. So.
It kills me to say I agree with Terry.
Let me write this down.
But I'm all in favor of the safety aspect and being prepared, and I think this is a good decision. So even though I'd be for taking it out of the occupancy, I support it coming out of the fund balance, for whatever that matters. I just thought I'd say it.
Can I make a motion to approve this thing?
Well,
On that
yeah,
basis,
let's have
some more?
debate.
Okay.
Yeah. It didn't come out, but the committee said no, public safety
So-
said no.
Yes,
did.
yeah. I think they
But that was only based on the funding source.
Okay.
The project we thought was worthwhile, it's just where the money should come from. And then just to reiterate, and I think Noel touched on it, the Jamestown hotels and motels are full or booked. I think Mr. Johnson mentioned the same thing. So if we do take the money out of the 3% tourism funding, okay, and we have a balance of about 600,000 in the reserve, Jennifer?
Yes, just over, a little bit over 600,000. In the 3%.
In the 3%
Occupancy,
reserve.
yes.
Okay, we're going to replenish that, I think, with the increase in tourism. So again, I think I think this is where the funding should come from. I'm very reluctant, and we have, as a legislature and as a committee, been reluctant to take money out of the unassigned fund balance unless we absolutely have to. This isn't a necessity. We have alternate funding sources. So either from the sheriff's department or the 3% tourism, I really think that's where the funding source should come from, and that's what I'm in favor of.
Right. Is it easy, I see, Kitty, is it easier for us to replace money to the occupancy, or is it easier for us to replace the money if the sheriff's, funding opportunity comes through? It doesn't matter where we replace the money, would it? Seem like that. Whether it's the general fund or it's the.
Well, the only way that the occupancy tax reserve is replenished, so to speak, is if at the end of any given year, we have a surplus of occupancy tax revenue, then the net, remaining amount over budget is what increases the reserve. Conversely, if we have a year where we don't meet our occupancy tax budget, that would reduce the reserve. So, unless you take some other action to move money from fund balance to the reserve for occupancy tax. I mean, that would but I don't think that you're gonna do that.
But
Yeah, so.
Kitty, this is a one-time event, so would you agree that there's going to be a significant increase in
Yeah,
motels
I agree that we're gonna see,
5% increase?
Yeah, but, I mean, I don't think that's debatable. It's more about not if there's enough money in the reserve, is if it's a best use of the reserve, I think is really more the question you're debating.
Understood, but.
And in that question, is this considered, the question came up last night, if we could even utilize the reserve fund, the tourism reserve fund. Would this qualify for that type of purchase?
I mean,
It should.
I think it's a little borderline. I mean, I think maybe the component of the resolution that are the supplies, the medical supplies, would definitely, because that is kind of for this one-time event. But, the equipment purchases that we're gonna benefit from is really just for a long-term purpose, that can be utilized. I think, I don't know, my personal opinion is just more appropriate. I mean, if we think the expense is warranted, then we should be able to easily agree that the use of fund balance is warranted, because if we think that we need this and we're gonna purchase it now so we can have it and use it over time, then where we pay for it kind of doesn't matter in a way to me, I guess. It's
But.
Do you mind? The Department of Planning oversees the occupancy tax, obviously, been involved in this almost from its inception. And I do think it's a stretch to use 3% occupancy tax. It's to encourage tourism. And I hate for this legislature to get criticized for spending occupancy tax money, reserve money, on equipment that really has a long life, and sort of maybe couching it that it's for this event. And I'm worried about that. And also, there is now an issue with the way the law was rewritten, that the Tourism Bureau is entitled to half of that occupancy tax as well. So it's really uncomfortable to me to use that occupancy tax reserve for this purpose.
No, and I
just
yeah.
had to say it.
No, thank you for that, because I believe that it is a stretch, and, it's, the promotion of tourism is the main focus of that reserve, and what are we promoting with an extra cell tower? We're utilizing it, and we're gonna be utilizing it above and beyond the specific event.
Mr. Chairman? Just in the legal opinion, going on what Mark said too, is there's the question of whether or not this could be used. As you know, we just actually renewed the request to have the additional occupancy tax, and both our Assemblyman and Senator came down and restructured what we can use this funds for. The concern I have is if this doesn't quite fit, would they look at what we're using as occupancy tax for and give us further restrictions on what we could use it for, possibly even not grant us renewals in the future years. So I think I share Mark's opinion on this, that it may not be the correct use of the occupancy tax.
But it's not, we can't do it. I mean, it's not illegal to use this, money from the tourism fund.
I would really have to look at, you know, again, the structure of what the new law says, to see if it does qualify. I share, and I think Kitty said too, the equipment is really, I think, that piece that may not fit nicely into the occupancy tax.
Okay.
And to stretch it, you know, draws, you know, potential further restrictions from our state assemblyman and state senator, who, you know, again, when we put the law through and we do it every 3 years, you know, just asking for the occupancy tax, this year they're very strict, and they actually changed it on the floor and gave us these new restrictions as to what we can use it for. So I'd hate to, if there's a question about it, I'd rather, you know, opine that general fund should be used as opposed to, you know, drawing those questions as to if we're using the right fund.
But looking at some of the uses that we've had for the 3% money in the past, some of those uses, some of those projects would be considered a stretch. I'm sure they would be. And as far as the deployable cell phone unit, yes, this is a piece of equipment, but it's being requested because of this event, because of the eclipse. Now, is there a side benefit that we can use it in the future? Yes, but it's because of the eclipse that these guys are asking for this piece of equipment at this time. So again, my position is, let's take the money out of the 3% funding instead of the unassigned fund balance.
So, just to tally our thoughts, you can either make a motion to amend this, Terry, and use those funds and see if you get a second and if it's approved, or we could, you know, anyone else have any other suggestions, or, you know, how we're gonna fund it? So just personal, I think that I kind of agree with our directors, our finance director and our attorney, that I think that it's a stretch using the funds, and if it's even considered that way, I think we should keep our hands off them and use the fund balance. And that's just my personal opinion, so.
Mine too, but I
Okay.
do appreciate Mr. Nebel's greediness and holding on to that general fund. God bless you. But I think it should be,
I'm a penny pincher.
there you go, I think it should come out of the general fund.
Well, in defense, here I go, lining up with Terry again. Boy,
Yeah, twice,
No,
twice in one
that's
day.
too much, Robert, that's too much.
we've been on here a long time, and not that this matters, but there's been occasions years ago that we've asked for 100,000 or, you know, or less, and been shut out, you know. So I guess I'm not living in the past, but it was always very sensitive to pull money out of the. Now, what I'm hoping is that the tourism that comes in, and I know we won't benefit from the occupancy tax, but the sales tax revenue increase, anything that we have above and beyond goes into the fund balance.
Correct.
So in a way, it's, again, I'll quit talking. We should probably make decisions here, and I'm gonna support it, so there we go.
Just, I'm the treasurer of the wine trail. I was just doing some math. I think we'll probably bring in an extra $8,000 to $10,000 of sales tax for that weekend that we would normally not bring in that weekend, for whatever that's worth.
So I think the body's kind of settled into the use of fund balance is good, unassigned fund balance. But also, I think that we would hope that down the road in this year, we would see an adjustment of where the money comes from. We have some potential with the 911 account, and I think in discussion with that would be great. I think that also some other grant money that could be potentially come available would become available. I think that the purchase of this medical supplies, okay, if you don't use them, you still have them, you're gonna utilize them. Hopefully it'll give you a cost savings in that area down the road, and you can realize it. And I'm maybe you'd give the money back, or maybe you'd offset your budget somewhere else. So it's a little piggy bank that hopefully you'll be able to accumulate. But hopefully we can have some other funds coming back to this, and I'm sure that I have confidence that you guys will find some other funds for this. Any other questions, comments, or should we vote?
I think we should vote, but you know it's going to go to the full legislature next week, so there might be other, just because we say so, it might not go through. We know how that happens.
Correct.
So, it's not written in stone just because we say yes or no.
And I might change my mind.
Change his mind.
Dan, just for the record, in knowing where this is going to go, I still want to make a motion to have this money come out of the 3% reserve, tourism reserve fund.
So Terry's made a motion. Would anyone second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. No. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I have the occupancy tax law in front of me. So I'd like to read the portion relating to the 3% occupancy tax that's relevant to this discussion. It says 3/5 of such revenue shall be credited to and deposited in a special tourism and convention fund, thereafter to be allocated by the county government of Chautauqua County through the county budget process solely for the purpose of enhancing and promoting tourism, conventions, trade shows, special events, and other directly related and supported activities, including but not limited to programs to improve the aesthetic qualities of the county, to improve infrastructure related to tourism, conventions, and trade shows, to develop, operate, and maintain parks, recreational facilities, tourist attractions, and such other programs as authorized by local law. The point that I'd like to draw is that the purpose is to promote tourism. This equipment will not be promoting this event. The event's going to happen. The event's already well promoted. This equipment is to deal with the implications of the event, not to promote it. That's all that I have to add.
Unless we put in our advertising, come to Chautauqua County because we're safe. I mean, kind of smart aleck, but
Safest place to view.
safest place to be. Gotta vote.
So just, motion failed, and any discussion on the motion? Failed. Okay, so we're back to the resolution as it stands, and we'll take a vote on this. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
One opposition. Motion passes, so, thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to the next proposed resolution is accept
Longer than the.
Southern Tier Community Impact Grant.
Thanks, Gordon.
This will be a much easier one. And so this is a grant that our office wrote from our CPR and Stop the Bleed education instructors, wrote a grant to basically, I believe it was for CPR and Stop the Bleed training equipment. Our office has gone out and done schools and community groups, and this is I believe it's from the Chautauqua Community Foundation, and just asking to accept this grant for $14,000. This particular grant is a 100% grant.
Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is fiscal year 2023 hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant program.
Yeah, this is a state grant. The HMEP grant goes to support planning needs, mostly to support our hazardous materials planning grants, which many of those are mandated that we have. And this grant does have a match of in-kind of $4,000, and that's met by our office staff operations. And this is a grant we've routinely gotten in the past.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is amend 2024 budget to implement round 3 of marketing assistance to business and not-for-profit projects within the Stockton County American Rescue Plan Act spending plan.
We on the ARPA round 3?
We are, yes.
Okay. Sorry. I thought those prior two resolutions would take longer. I'm Mark Geis. I'm the Deputy County Executive for Economic Development. I'm the CEO of the Industrial Development Agency. So this project, or this resolution, considers approving just over $71,000 for what we're referring to as round 3 of the ARPA Business Marketing Assistance Program. In round 1 of the ARPA, we received $400,000, which we used for 3 different purposes. One was an economic gardening program with Invest Buffalo and Niagara. We also did a ESG white paper to help companies with their internal culture, and about $320,000 of that was used for providing grants to small businesses of up to 50 people, 50 staff, and grants up to $10,000 to help them upgrade their marketing. Things like branding, creating a new website, signage, social media, etc. We teamed up with the Small Business Development Center at JCC and also the Chamber, Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce. We created marketing materials, we advertised, and we had over 80 applicants for the program in 1 week. So through round 1 of that, 320 of that 400, we were able to assist about 40 businesses with those grants. So we still had quite a number of about 44 still on the waiting list. So we went to the Ralph Wilson Foundation and we said, look, we have this great program. We've got great testimony from the round 1 applicants. It's really helping out people. Would you be willing to assist us with this program? They granted us $258,000. We serviced another 35 businesses, but we still had 9 businesses left on that waiting list. So the ARPA committee, with the balance of the ARPA monies, recommended that this get funded. $71,000 will get those remaining 9 businesses taken care of. And, we have a really good story to tell here that we helped over 80 businesses upgrade their marketing presence. And I've got a report that I put together that I'll, once we get these final, hopefully you approve this and the legislature approves it, the final 9 businesses, I'm really excited to send you all this report that really documents what we did and how much it helped the community.
Questions, comments?
Mark actually came to us last night, he spoke to us, and I asked him for some of the examples of the businesses that he was helping. And believe it or not, there's a lot of small mom and pop shops in there. This is a great opportunity for funding for them. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, and that's a question I would have had is just, an example of some of the businesses that you would be supporting here, those 9. And so, thank you for the information there. And, it's good to help those businesses that could use a little extra help. A lot of those places and businesses are utilizing what they have, so a little help to help their marketing presence is great. Questions, comments?
Marketing tends to be the last place you want to pay your staff, you want to pay for equipment, you want to pay, and marketing tends to be one of those things, well, geez, I'd really like to do it, I just don't have the extra money. So this has helped those companies with that marketing presence.
That's great. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next resolution is Authorize extension of lease agreement for the Department of Planning and Development at the BWB Center.
So as you're probably aware, the Department of Planning and Development is co-located with the IDA at the BWB Center. If you don't know where that is, it's right in front of the National Comedy Center. It's a building owned by Krog. It's very nice. It's really good space. You know, as part of, and you're all familiar that the IDA had an audit done by the authority's budget office, and one of the things they flagged was that you know, we were leasing space to the county. The IDA was leasing space to the county at less than fair market value. As part of that process, and it's the authority budget office property disposition law, we had to go and had an appraisal done to figure out what the value of that space is, and that appraisal came back that space was worth $14.50 a square foot. As you can see in this resolution, we're renting it to the county at $6.50 per square foot, which is a very good price. And then we had to take that information back to our board and say, hey, IDA board, we're renting the space to the county at less than fair market value. And these are the reasons why, you know, you should be good with that. And it's because really we should be co-located. Planning is really the precursor to economic development. We all work together. We should be under one roof. And we all have a common mission. And, you know, without question, our board approved the lease of that space to the county at $6.50 a square foot. The reason I bring that up is, and this has not changed for many years. It's been $6.50 for as long as I can remember. Even back when the planning department was at the Welch's building, it was $6.50 a square foot. So that has not gone up. The reason I bring that up is because the only difference really this year is that we typically were on a one-year lease. The county was with the IDA. So every year we'd come back and you'd have to renew it. But this is 27 months. And the reason why it's 27 months is that is the term of the lease that the IDA has with BWB, the Krog, in that building. And extending it out 27 months means that we don't have to go through this whole process again. In other words, next year I'd have to have another appraisal done, and I have to go back to my board and get a resolution, and the same outcome, and then come back and spend the money and all that. So that's the only difference. This is 27 months versus 12 months.
Would you inhabit a third-story place at the CHQ Transit Building? We can do that until that building is today. Any questions, comments in relation to this contract? I think the rate is good and that's proven, and so thank you for your work and the effort of securing the space and keeping it together and at a good rate. So, questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe you have any other.
No, but I'm going to sit up here with Rebecca on the air. I'm going to grab some.
So we're going to take just a small break, okay? We've been at it, and this morning I wanted to get through the resolutions.
That works.
So let's take a 5-10 minute break. Use the facilities or whatever you want to do. Get up and stretch, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you. At this time, we'll reconvene our meeting if everyone wants to get back in their position. And we are adjusting our agenda for a minute. We have a late resolution that will only take a couple of minutes, so I want to bring that to the floor first, and then we will get into our discussion that may take a little while. Gentlemen, what do we have in front of us today? It's an emergency, or it's a resolution, late resolution, it's not an emergency, titled Authorized Agreement with New York State ITS for Ortho Imagery Enhancements.
Patrick Slagle, County Attorney. And I'm just here to explain kind of the purpose of why this came to you late. This was actually making its way through the system normally to be in front of you in the February meeting. However, the February meeting obviously is later in the month, and New York State needed a commitment letter for this by February 16th. In reviewing that, I took the opinion that we couldn't go forward with that commitment letter without legislative approval because of the agreement. And so, although John and his team had everything done right, getting it ready for next month, I made the call yesterday that I think we need to bring this month to thereby get hopefully your approval and sign that commitment letter in the middle of next month. So it comes to you late, and that's based on my opinion as to why it should happen.
And John, what are we approving?
Yeah, so this is an agreement with New York State. They are going to be producing some new ortho imagery, which is used on our GIS site. It is the actual pictures of land and, trees and streets and buildings and things like you see on the GIS site. They do this, the last time they did it was 2016. And they fly over the county in the spring when there's no leaf growth, so we get a much better view of things. So they did it back in 2016. By default, they provide us with 1 foot resolution across the entire county. This agreement is for an upgrade to the area around the lake to a 6-inch degree of resolution. So it's a much finer resolution. The departments that are going to be funding this at a cost of $21,000 are the South Sewer District, the North Sewer District, and we're partnering with the Jamestown BPU because it includes the city of Jamestown as well. So they're ponying up some funding, $8,500 towards the $21,000. North County Sewer District is going to pay $2,500, and then South County Sewer District will pay the remaining $10,000. So this resolution is just so that we can go into that agreement with that upgrade of the area around the lake for the finer resolution.
And John, so just to be a little more specific, this is a specific area. It's not county-wide, correct?
Correct. Okay. To upgrade to 6-inch county-wide would have been over $62,000.
Okay.
And we didn't, I talked to the planning department, IDA, and at this time we weren't ready to fund the entire county. The area around the lake is important to the sewer districts and to the city of Jamestown. Can also be used by all the other departments for that area and by the public as well. So because this is going to be publicly available. So it does give us finer resolution around the lake, but not the entire county.
And just a standard upgrade to the system or update, sorry, not upgrade, update. So you said it was updated in 2016. You're going to update this specific area. How about the rest of the area?
The rest of the county will be flown.
Okay.
So it will update the entire county,
Okay.
but just the finer resolution around the lake.
So the whole county is getting an update.
Yes.
And with specific area of around the lake being so captured so infinitely, if you will.
Yeah,
Okay.
at a finer resolution, correct.
Okay. Questions, comments?
So the entire county, there isn't a charge for that?
Correct.
Just
the enhancement.
Enhanced, okay.
The enhanced resolution they do charge for.
Mr. Johnson?
We're talking visibility resolution or GPS location resolution?
GPS location resolution.
Okay.
Yes.
If it's a free charge, why is there such a delay? I mean, 2016 to now to upgrade it or to retake new pictures. Why didn't they do it?
Good question.
To this?
I'd have to ask the state.
Okay.
You know, they I think they bid this out I'm sure, to somebody that actually flies it.
Sure.
I'm not sure how often somebody like Google or Microsoft fly it.
Okay.
But I know the state purposely does it in the spring so that we
Sure.
get better resolution without leaf cover. I don't know why they haven't done it since 2016. I'm guessing COVID probably had something to do with it, but
Okay.
who knows? Yes, sir.
I was down at the airport in Dunkirk in 2016. They had 2 twin-engine Cessnas with big cameras on the belly of them for a week or so.
Yep.
And you could see them doing laps.
Yep, that's what they'll be doing again.
Any other questions, comments? Patrick, that took about 4.5 minutes.
I
He said two.
apologize. I promised a couple
Well, it
minutes.
was the questions. I mean, that was done in 2 minutes. But.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, next we'll have our discussions.
$300 or $400 an hour.
So, for formality, we're discussing a tabled resolution number 327-23. It's authorizing the use of the 3% reserve funding and authorized agreement with Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation to initiate a public art program. And I understand that you were going to originally Zoom, but you were able to break out of Buffalo and get here and drive out of the snow. So how much snow do they have in Buffalo?
I have 3 feet in Hamburg, so.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
so,
coming down.
yeah, thankfully, it's been running right up the lake this year and has been dumping on Buffalo this year, last year, the year before. And so we appreciate getting surpassed. Some of us do anyway, but I'm sure some of our local ski resorts and that wish that we could have gotten some of that snow. So,
Well, thank you for having me. I'm Rebecca Worster, Planning Coordinator for the Department of Planning and Development. And I'd like to go over some more details about the kind of public art tourism destination program that we'd like to implement. So specifically, we're requesting $100,000 out of the 3% occupancy tax reserve for 2 specific programs. They're one that is specific to a mural program. We're naming it Paint CHQ. And the second one, we're kind of calling it the Public Art Chair Installation Program or project. I'll specifically talk about the mural program first. I also provided these talking points as well as a proposal that I'll be going through for you all. And Olivia also emailed them, so there's some really nice visuals, colored, that you can look at in your emails as well. So the mural program is really meant to be an innovative new program that's intended to build off of our department's countywide downtown revitalization and economic development efforts. You know, we've been really working hard with a lot of local municipalities on master planning for their downtowns. We've been writing a lot of grants for implementation of projects, and then helping those municipalities with administration and implementing the actual projects for downtown revitalization. And public art really goes hand in hand with that. We're proposing to bring 5 large-scale murals to 5 downtown districts, providing murals that will really attract visitors, locals, and tourists. You know, our intent with this is, in regards to a tourism-related project, thinking new, thinking outside of the box. Why is public art so important to bring to our community? What investment opportunities is that related to our economic development? And, you know, really, when I talk about the benefits of a mural, it's really meant to enhance a community and encourage that tourism and commerce. You know, businesses are more likely to develop in areas where there's public art, there's attractions, there's people that want to go to those places, quality of life improvements. People want to live by unique things. Public art is one of those pieces that is on a lot of people's checklists. Pride and community identity. These murals are going to really emphasize what the community stands for and wants to see in the mural. And then a lot of economic development benefits. For every $1 invested in nonprofit arts, it generates on average $6 in tax revenue. So there's really a huge benefit within the economic development side. In addition, I put some information on the National Endowment for the Arts and the Bureau of Economic Analysis. They released some data this March of 2023 about 2020 to 2021 details. And total economic value added by arts and culture industries actually grew 13.7% during that time period, which is really huge during COVID. And in terms of gross domestic products, arts and culture ranked third on the list, with healthcare and social assistance and retail and trade coming in first and second. That's outbeating transportation industries, outdoor recreation, mining, and agriculture. So it does play a significant piece in our economic development. And then as far as the county-wide program, it will have a regional benefit, creating unity among the communities that will be chosen for the mural project, creating public art tourism. Out of this, we're going to create a interactive map that will include all of the new murals, but also include locations of the existing murals. So it will bring in tourism that can follow the map to go to those different spots that our murals are located throughout the county. There's going to be some big media attention, bringing that perspective that Chautauqua County is a mecca for public arts, and that we want to emphasize, come here to see all of our great artwork. And then a mural as an asset for your community. Again, like I mentioned, we're really going to make this program revolve around what the community would like to see. There'll be a specific creative brief that the community will come up with and then give to the local artist to develop that mural. So a little bit of more detail. The project specifics can be found on page 14, but I'll just go through those briefly. So there's really 4 key elements in a successful public art project. Looking at location. So again, I mentioned we're gonna work with 5 communities on a specific location for those murals. And we're talking really large scale murals here. From 60 feet wide to 120 feet wide. These are really going to be impactful locations in our downtown corridors. We want to see them suitable for a mural. So not every facade is best suited for a mural, so that will be really important in selection. You think any brick building would be a great mural, but when you really get down to the masonry of it, you have to look at that to make sure that the cost to prep the building isn't more than actually the mural cost itself.
Can we ask a question in just this specific area, if you would,
Sure.
please? Sure. So you're choosing 5 communities to receive a mural. Any notion of those 5 spots?
We were thinking the 2 cities might be impactful, and then probably 3 villages would most likely, possibly, yep, maybe Mayville, maybe Bemis. Those were ones
so no
that stood out.
specific place as of yet?
Not as of yet, no.
Okay, but you are considering, so basically you're kind of thinking that you would, each larger city and then a couple of the smaller villages or other municipalities, so a total of 5 is what you're looking at doing.
Yep.
And kind of spread out across the county of where it would make sense.
Correct.
And the places would have to agree to.
Correct.
Correct.
And they have to have a building that has the
Exactly.
facade that's large enough to do one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Who would agree to where they're going to be?
We probably internally look at some locations. We've had a couple municipalities reach out to us also saying, hey, we have a building and the property owner is interested as well. So we'll probably kind of entertain those couple places and then reach out to municipalities as well saying, hey, this could be a great potential spot. It could also expand on, we've really been working on, like I said, the master planning and economic development. So we want something that is kind of building on that in a couple communities that the city of Dunkirk with their downtown revitalization initiative and the 10 million that's coming to invest, building in public art aspects to really strengthen that might be something that we think about, or other municipalities that are really working to push their downtown economic development. So those might be kind of rising to the top of the
And
list.
just add on to that, I think like any other planning project we'll put together sort of a steering group.
Yep.
And we'll think about who should be represented on that, so that we're making decisions that are
Well, my concern
collective.
is
Yeah,
there's always gonna be somebody left out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna come back next year and
But
ask
it's
for
usually
more.
looked at, not who's included, it's who's left out, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
understood.
well, we put one in Jamestown, well, you didn't put one in my town, so I don't care that you put, I'm thinking of what I'm gonna hear from my constituents if we don't get a mural.
Yeah.
And conversation, just putting that out there.
And understood. I think we want to make sure that they're scattered because, we want to create a tourism destination throughout the county. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about that effort as well, and working with the local art agencies to maybe pick some help with picking locations.
I
might
think
be a
this
good
could
way
also
to
be a
do.
starting point where we do this, and then if there's other communities that are chomping at the bit, we can go to the foundations, we can go to the Partnership for Economic Growth, or the IDA potentially even, and get more funding to do even more, so this will be a catalyst.
Yeah, I think this is definitely like that pilot program for this. There's a lot involved here, and I think this first go around, we're going to get those tools to really be able to do more in the future also. So I can go into some more details just so.
We have a couple more questions. I know Dave's been,
No,
and I have something,
I just wanted to give you a little bit of history on that. You know that we did table this. I was a part of that because I thought that we really didn't get an explanation for $100,000. I thought that was a lot of money. After the meeting, I called Rebecca and she said, Dave, I'll be working on that and I'll have something for you. And she certainly has produced an actual viable business plan for this money. It actually comes with a cost breakdown. And I asked that all this information be sent to all legislatures because we're gonna have to bring this off the table again. And by the time I got home last night, it was on my email. So I appreciate you guys getting right on that. So I know I was one of the driving forces saying we've gotta have some breakdowns on this money, where it's going. And I think she's done that, and I wanna make sure she gets credit for this hard work to come and, help us realize, this goal that they have in mind. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, and I want, anytime, when she's working down through this, if you have a question, please just raise your hand, and I wanted to break it to a specific spot because I wanted to ask the location.
Mm-hmm.
And as our discussion went on, I think that it is important, in what you just touched on, Mr. Geis, was and you as well as the bridge. So you are proposing these 5 projects because that's the funds that you believe that you can get done. But I think that it is generating some interest, maybe, that other communities would want to participate, and that person or that community that got left out would say, well, geez, if we had known, we could have. So I think there's some potential there that maybe even those other communities would be willing to, support financially. And if the financial support is there, then you could turn that 5 projects into 10, right? So I think that's an avenue that you really should consider at this stage, because if you bring in an artist, you've spent the money, you've lodged them, you brought them here, they paint on a mural and go home. They could paint on that mural, and if the village of Casadega wanted to spend a little bit, and you could say, well, we already have the artist here, we're paying for him, and we'll extend his stay an extra day, and he can come or she can paint a little extra on your mural. Okay, so make sure that is known in your communities, and say, look, we're spending the money now, we have them here for a little bit more, we could keep them and send them over your direction or whatever, right? So I just wanted to make sure that point was made.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, Dan, according to this plan here, the artist, which that question came up last time, the artists are going to be local. They're not going to be
Not all.
from
Can I
outside the county.
speak to that?
Not all
So
of them, I think
we're gonna
that-
open
Well,
it to.
it says local artists.
Well, we're gonna.
It will be
Okay.
open to local artists. So
Okay.
that's saying if we only get 3 local artists, then we need to open that pool up. So we will be opening it up, but it's up to the community and the committee to select that artist. And in addition, there's going to be an apprenticeship program with local artists that are interested in learning the skills to create murals. So that's where I see the spin-off in working with other municipalities and new local artists that are going to learn those mural skills that can then go and implement more murals in our communities and do just that.
I'm going to add to that because not every artist can do a 100 by 100 mural.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Right.
it takes special equipment, a special skill, but it's something that can be learned by local artists, and it could have spillover.
And then another point, depending on the number of local we get, we might be able to do a couple more murals. So I'll go into the cost in a second, but a lot of those costs do include lodging and things like that. If we have local, that will reduce the cost, and we might be able to implement a couple more murals based on that. So I don't want to close it off. I think that local is very important, but that's the reasoning that we'll be opening it to local and outside.
Yeah. Rebecca, I'm just going on what's in this business plan here,
Yeah.
and it does say program open to all local artists.
Mhm.
So perhaps that should be amended to preferably local artists, but possibly outside artists.
This
Whatever.
one is a proposal. These are just my talking points. That was just one piece of my talking point to make sure that you knew that it is going to be open to local. So
Okay.
follow this for more of the proposal of what we're doing for the mural project.
Continue on, and
Okay.
some of these questions will get answered. so-
Yeah, yep, exactly. So again, local and opened a little further than that, possibly, just depending on the caliber and amount. And then the concept of the art, I mentioned a creative brief that the local committee, wherever that's located, will come up with, you know, this is a historic value of our community. Maybe this flower is significant to our community. The trains, maybe, the lakes. They'll define that in a creative brief that will go to the artist, and the artist will be able to interpret that, and will give a couple concepts, 2 to 3 concepts, and then the committee would look over those concepts and ultimately make the selection, as well as the property owner, because obviously it's their wall. Let's see
So it's
here.
going to speak to the history or something significant,
Yep.
things significant to that community.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then there's a big piece involved in the artist contract and also the contract with the property owner. So there's some legal aspects that I'll get into the cost estimates that are involved there that are requirements as part of this. Timeline, I'm not going to get into huge detail with the timeline, but the hopes is that we could start this January and starting to plan this. This takes a lot of work. We have a really young and enthusiastic planning department that's excited about this. Emma Cook is a junior planner that is a great planner, but also an artist, and I could see her really being big very, very heavily involved in this. The goal is to actually implement the murals in the summer or in September of 2024. It would be a 2-week period that the murals would be going up. And then around each mural, when it's completed, there would be a small festival to unveil the mural, maybe an artist talk. We're still planning that, but there'd be a kind of a festival component to celebrate each mural. The next item I'll cover is mural costs. On average, cost per mural, and this includes artist stipend, travel and lodging, which could come off depending on local, wall preparation, heavy equipment rentals, which also could be a possibility of getting some donated services for like a lift for the project, and then any mural incidentals, covering those costs as well. So on average, a typical mural of these sizes costs from $15,000 to $18,000. We are, again, saying right now 5 murals, but the price could go down if there's more local talent. So we could do a few more depending on that. Marketing, we're planning to do that in-house. We have a great team that I think can implement that. Events, like I mentioned, we'd probably do, have a band and do some fun stuff revolving around this. So we said $2,500 to $3,000. Legal fees for the property owner and artist contracts, $3,000 to $5,000. And then, as I mentioned, a lot of work is involved in this. And we kind of got this idea from Livingston County, which has Letchworth State Park, Canisius Lake, kind of down towards the Finger Lakes. They worked with Alex Hall, who is she's an artist and a public spaces consultant that works on a lot of different mural projects like this. And they worked with Alex in 2022 to implement 9 countywide murals. So they really, really stressed the significance of her working on this. Actually, she helped develop this proposal. We didn't think about half of these things when we were thinking about this project. So there's a lot involved. And we think that by working with her this one time, we'll have the skill set then to implement further projects in the future. So her cost is $25,000. So for the mural project cost alone, we're estimating at $108,000. Now, obviously, we're here to ask for $100,000. So out of that 108, out of the 100,000 request, we're requesting 70,000 for the murals. We have some outside funding to cover the remaining costs through CPAG and some foundations possibly. So we think we can get to that 108,000 to implement this portion of the project. And then anything else, I'm just trying to think. I covered the apprenticeship. I covered the trail map. In your packet, I provided a link to the Livingston County project. It's Livco Walls. It's really cool. They have a nice video of the program and the project, so I'd highly suggest you going to check that out. It's the last point on the first page of your handout, the link there. Any questions on the mural side of it before I jump to the chairs?
So if you, and I don't know how often you frequent the city of Jamestown, there's 2 murals that I can think of. If you're traveling west on the, south on the Washington Street Bridge, you see the Lucy, and Desi and Fred and Ethel in the back on that mural. There's also one down by City Hall there by the old taco hut there, where you see the Vegemite. Am I saying that right?
Vegemita vitamin.
Vegemita vitamin. Okay, so that's a nice mural.
Easy for him to say.
The city of Jamestown paid somebody to put another mural on there that looks like a bunch of high school kids came there and put flowers and stuff on it. I think it looks terrible. So when we talk about getting a real artist, we're talking about, I know, I'm telling how I really feel. But I think it distracts away from the great work that's done up on the building, and I'm sure you see it all the time. Then I see this thing here. Now, if they had grade school kids do it, God bless them. All I'm saying is there's a difference between somebody that can do some painting and a real mural artist. So I appreciate you looking into that, because there's a great example down by City Hall in Jamestown.
Yeah, and we have a list of all of our local artists that have done some really great mural work. Gary Peters actually is my parents' neighbor, so I will definitely be letting him know when we have proposals ready to go out that he should put in one. But we have a list of a lot of local artists. Like I said, our junior planners and artists, and she's very connected to the local art community, so we'll be getting the word out.
Yeah, there's some good community murals. You know, Casadega recently put one in on the side of that building on the way through. It looks nice on the building there. Promotes that business, and there could potentially be a new business coming into that space. Yep. There's a mural at the Lakewood Y painted on the side of that building. I remember when it was being painted. It took a long time. But the question I have, so use of this funding, this 3% funding, is to promote tourism. Mm-hmm. So, painting these murals, is this going to promote tourism? Are people going to come and say, "I want to see these murals. I want to come. I might frequent this wine trail that we have. I might go to the Lucy place and so-and-so painted a mural on the side of this building. I really want to see it or get a picture. So is that why we're doing this? Okay, or is it just because we want it to look pretty? Okay, so that's a question.
Can I start out answering that?
start out,
I mean, you know, we need a critical mass of cool stuff here. And I think I said that at the last meeting last month, you know. You take any individual thing, maybe somebody doesn't come, and I'm not saying somebody wouldn't come to look at a mural. I think they very well could. But there's other things to do. It's one of many things to do, right? It just adds to sort of the attractions, and it brands. It helps brand a community. And that's why I think it's important. I think art matters. And is when the young staff came to me and they were super excited about this concept, and I was at first I'm like, but as they talked about it, and as they talked about other communities, about what's going on, and as I saw their excitement, I got more excited about it. And now I'm full on board here that this is a good idea. It's thinking out of the box a little bit, but it's creating more of those things, the cool things, especially young people want to see, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the mural programs throughout the county, throughout different places, that us promoting this trails map of the different mural locations, it's a huge tourism aspect. I know that people go to Buffalo just to like go to the different mural places.
I think they have now like a stamp program, not for
Yeah, we
murals,
could
but
even-
for, I can't remember what, somebody was telling me about it. And there's different attractions, and it's almost like a passport. They get a stamp where they go to all these different locations throughout Erie County.
Yeah.
And that's that kind of thing.
It's a big draw, and thanks to Pierre reading off the new local law, they also mentioned the aesthetic quality of the county, and I think this will really be improving to the aesthetic quality of Chautauqua County as well.
Eclipse mural.
Could do one.
That's not a bad idea.
And you know what? We last thing I'll mention. This is also to attract tourists, but this is also to retain our young community, our young people as well. People are so attracted to those unique places, and public art is a big piece of that. And we want to try to keep our young people in our community, and doing things like this, investing in this type of project and artwork. Really does say a lot to our up and coming residents. So I think we have to think about our young people, our young families as well, and this is a big draw.
David had his hand up
No,
first.
well, one of the things that I'm just gonna kind of piggyback on what she's talking about. The community-based economic development is very, very important, and I even want to put it against, we'll even call the industrial parks. We know how important the industrial parks are, but when you think about the industrial parks, they're tucked away, way back in the woods somewhere, and they've got a nice road and a railhead, and I don't know if people see that. Where this type, the community-based economic development, is something that people walk by. Some people, they go downtown. You come downtown for the Lucy Fest, and they have brochures that say, go check out the mural, go do this, go do this. And there's coupons in there for, cut rate food and sauce and different places to eat. But that's what I think people actually, when it comes to their quality of life, that's what they're actually looking for. And like I said, and I do put them against the industrial parks, because it's great that we had a new business come in and the IDA got them in, we got 200 jobs, but that's not something that they see every day. When you go downtown or when you're driving on the Washington Street Bridge, you see that mural, welcome to Jamestown or something like that. And I think that's the most important part of it when we talk about why is there a great exodus of people leaving. That quality of life, I think, we have a handle on, we can actually do better on trying to get folks to stay. Is it the cure-all? No, it's not. But I think there's something that we could actually take a look at and do better at. Because we really, a lot of times in our seats, we pay a lot of bills that we don't really care to. We've got, people are being institutionalized. We pay. This is something really that directly affects the quality of life for the folks in whatever community that these murals will be in.
Mr. Scott?
Thank you.
Well said.
I was talking to an artist, a local artist, and he we were talking about the murals, and he identified that they can be done on 4x8 sheets of some type of, I'm gonna say plywood, just for, and then they're built out of, the beauty of that is it can be done in someone's shop. I'm not artsy enough to do it. And then it gets installed on a grid work. It's a better surface. And if something happens to panel number 7, you can take panel number 7 off, repair it, and put it back up. Because one of the things that I've noticed about murals is they go up and they look great until next spring, and then they're kind of, they start to get tired. So are we aware of doing murals? I think when we think of murals, we're all thinking of an old brick building and you paint it on the old brick. But there are other ways to do murals, such as providing some type of a grid work on there, and then the panels are actually put onto the building. Yeah, whatever the surface is. Just, I'm throwing it out there.
The types of paints and materials that they're using these days are really, they last quite a while. You know, in talking with the one consultant, she said that these murals last 15 to 20 years, the lifespan of these that we're proposing to go up, and the types of paints, and some people use spray paints, and wall prep is huge. So we
But
can
I'm concerned.
definitely look at that.
I'm concerned that the wall
Yeah.
prep is gonna be more than the mural. I was in the business a little bit,
Yeah.
and
And that's the importance of picking a decent wall, at least. You know, we're not going to pick one that, like,
I just
yeah,
thought it was
Falling
kind of
down.
a cool concept to put
yeah,
12 4x8 panels up there,
Mm-hmm.
perfectly smooth, the details there. The
Yeah.
repair is available, but
I'd love to get that artist's name if you don't mind.
Sure.
We'll look into that too.
Yeah.
And they'll last a lot more going pointed northeast than they will pointed southwest.
That's another good.
In 1920, they used some sort of paint and painted all these mail pouch barns, and some of that paint's still sticking pretty good.
Yeah.
You can't buy that
Probably
anymore.
can't buy that anymore. There's some sort of additive in it that if a kid eat it.
LEAD.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Johnson, did you have any questions? I know we talked
So, I was just, we were talking, I was looking at the consultant's bill. I mean, I don't
Yep.
need to break things down, but that's a pretty big chunk.
It is, yeah, I
And
agree.
so I would just entrust you to make sure that, you know, we know what that works out to as an hourly rate, and we're comfortable with that, and we're getting
Yep.
what we want.
And I would say that our costs for the county would not go to that bill. We would use our outside funding sources for that. And then,
David,
oh,
did you have
sorry.
that? You were like this, but
No, I'm
just
done.
stretching.
I'm done, nope.
Talk a
other
little bit
questions?
about the chairs a little bit.
Yeah,
Any
I
other
just
questions
wanted to-
on the murals before we move on to the chairs? Murals were good?
You're the chair.
No, the only
No,
thing
that's
I
what I'm
would say
asking
was,
everybody else. We're good on the
is that
murals?
some of those panels that you're talking about, I think there's some of those at the Winter Garden, where the old Winter Garden Plaza is in Jamestown. I think there's some of those sign murals that you're talking about that they put together to make that face and stuff like that. I've seen those.
Amy's Place is the one in Lakewood. It took me a minute to remember.
What is it?
that. Amy's Place.
Oh, yeah.
It says Amy's Place. Yeah, it's right on the Lakewood Y building. Just took me a minute to remember that. Let's hear about the chairs.
Okay, yeah, not to downplay the chairs, but asking for a little less on the chair side of things, $30,000. Our intent is to install 6 large-scale chairs that celebrate Chautauqua County's historic furniture industry and unique geographic assets. Our department will work with local municipalities that have a historic tie to the furniture industry, as well as select unique locations that are that create Instagrammable moments or social media moments. You know, it's so huge to go to a spot such as a mural or a large scale chair, take a picture, and then post that on whatever social media network, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want to do. But it's so huge now, and it really is a tourism attraction. Social media has really changed the way we think about tourism and how we promote our communities. And the chair installation would really allow the user to get the feel for what was created in the community as far as the historic furniture aspect. And it'll really generate an opportunity for users to take a picture at that location and share it on social media. And a recent study that I found on bookings.com states that 75% of travelers tend to use social media to influence travel destination choices. So if they see a really cool historic chair with a backdrop of our beautiful geography, whether that be our lakes or our hills or, our overall geographic assets, and say, hey, that looks beautiful, I want to go there. That's bringing in tourism, that's drawing people to our community, and it's awesome for local people as well that can go there anytime or with family members. So, we see it as a big draw. Creating a unique sense of place that celebrates our community's past while really embracing the future is a really important part of economic development and tourism. So we see this side of the project as doing just that. And this is broken down into a couple different chairs we're looking at. From the historic side of things, those chairs, we've gotten estimates from some local furniture manufacturers. Those are a little heftier in cost, about $7,000 per chair for the historic chairs that will be large scale, similar to the one in Jamestown that I'm sure Mark will jump in and talk about.
Yeah, I will.
And then 3 chairs at $3,000 per chair that will be unique to locations that really celebrate our county's history. They could be a really large-scale Adirondack chair that's uniquely painted, or a really cool swing that's situated right in front of like Lake Erie or Chautauqua Lake that you can view. In the city of Buffalo on the Outer Harbor waterfront, they have like a bunch of really unique swings, and people are always there hanging out, taking pictures with their families, picnicking around those chairs. So it's really a cool setting. And then each chair will also include a plaque with the details on the history and the overall project. We might even do like a QR code that has a map linked to them. So you can go kind of, like I said, the tourism map with the mural. Maybe our chairs have that as well. And you can kind of see the breakdown of funding, but I'll let Mark speak to it a little bit more.
Yeah, so I just have a couple of things. My office on 3rd Street in the BWB building, I look right out at that big chair that's sitting there, that Fancher chair did. And it's like the old, I forget what they call the barrel back chair or something. It's sort of our region's known for that chair, and you cannot believe the number of people during the summer, all day long, people going there, getting their pictures taken, And that really got me thinking about this concept of doing these chairs around the county. I think, we go down to Canal Side quite a bit. And in fact, we go in the winters and go skating sometimes, and they have the Shark Lady down there. And that is, every you got to wait in line to get get a picture taken with the Shark Lady. It's sort of weird, right? Why a shark? I don't know. But anyway, that sort of has branded that area as, the Canal Side area. And then, the other thing is that we'll brand these chairs at Chautauqua County, so that, as people are taking pictures of this and sending them to, all of their friends and acquaintances, Chautauqua County. So I think it's a really cool idea. And again, well, let's see how it goes. And then, if there's a real demand for this, maybe we can, look at other funding sources in the future and do even more.
And then lastly, the budget breakdown I put in your packet as well. So again, $70,000 for the murals, $30,000 for the chairs. That's $100,000. The chairs we won't have some outside funding for, but the murals we have $38,000. That's we're confident we can secure to finalize that $108,000 budget for the mural. So that's the only outside cost.
Okay. Questions?
No, so, this is the sticking point, this is the point I wanna make. the chairs are not the destination, I don't believe. I don't believe people are gonna go see the chair. But I think if they're placed appropriately, people will embrace that when they're down by the Comedy Center, or they're down by the Reggie Linnaeus. So I think that chair gets more use. I don't think you can take a chair and stick it in Barcelona and think people, let's go to Barcelona and take a picture with the chair. So I think their placement is going to be the key. So if we want to put one in Westfield and we want to make the Wine Trail chair or something like that might be viable, but where they're placed, I think, is going to be the real issue in my book.
Yeah, when I walk out on the Long Point, it'd be nice to have a big old chair that you can sit on out there, but, you know, it's just, you know, I agree this location is
Yeah.
it's very.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be tourists.
Not at your house. Question. Okay, guys, so 6 chairs throughout Chautauqua County. Okay. The county pays for the chairs. Okay. People come to sit on these chairs and take selfies or whatever. All right, a kid falls off the chair. Who's liable? Is the county liable?
No,
Why not?
because
We
they're not
bought
gonna
the-
be,
we
they're
bought
not
the
gonna be
chair.
on the county's land.
Okay. Does the municipality understand that?
Yeah, well, you know what, I'll have to find out, you know, Gabby was involved in the chair in Jamestown,
Okay.
and I'll find out exactly how they handled that. So I don't know exactly the answer to that, although, you know, there are facilities all over municipalities that people use, and obviously there's
There are,
protections
Mark,
for
but
it.
I'm concerned about the county and the county's potential liability.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Do you have anything to say about that, Pat?
We were to enter into agreement with wherever we put the chairs to, you know,
Hold us harmless?
hold us harmless. I mean, obviously, if you constructed a giant pit and said, come view the county pit, and someone falls in, I mean, the county paid for that, and you constructed that hazard. So could someone fall off a chair and they would sue the county saying, you constructed this hazard? So we would enter into agreements with wherever we place the chairs to, you know, make sure we reduce our liability. I want to say reduce, because obviously if someone does get injured, they're always gonna name the county in any lawsuit because there's that funding source. We would then have to, you know, look at those arguments and say, we're not liable. I thought the type was a good idea, so you can clearly see. But I mean, so that's the thing, so we would work with whatever municipality or business where these chairs are placed to, you know, ensure there's agreements to reduce our liability.
Do you have Patrick's bill figured out here?
Yeah, I don't see that happening, but just the
Understood.
one chance in 1,000 that it does, I just want to make sure that the county is covered.
It's a very good point, Terry, because, you know, there is that potential, and I suppose depending on how big these chairs, you know, some kid hanging by his feet, supervision is bigger on them too, and we can't put a camera on each one to see what really happens, so it is a avenue that really should be questioned, I suppose.
Absolutely.
You hate to think that you need to, but, it is very true. Any other questions, comments?
Well, I guess I can just give you there's a lot here. I appreciate you coming up with all this. It was just put on my desk. I didn't get it emailed to me, so I haven't had a chance to look it over. And I gotta be honest, I'm just not totally sold on all this. So I'm probably gonna vote no, at least in committee on it. Just not convinced.
Just for formalities, where does this, is this still tabled?
Yes.
It is still tabled.
It was tabled at the legislature meeting, so it can only come off the table at the legislature
legislature
meeting.
meeting.
So there's no action for this committee to take.
This
Okay,
is just
and
a
I just wanted to
discussion.
make sure
Okay.
that was every.
Then strike what I
That was
just
no?
said, because I'm not gonna have a vote this morning on that.
So, yes, this will, you know, there's a very good discussion item. We wanted to, as a legislature, last month, we did want to table this for further discussion and information. and I'm glad that you did. I thank you for coming in and giving us that information and giving both committees, this committee and the committee before, the time and to vet this out a little more. And, you know, so thank you for that. And, you know, as we continue to mull this over, I'm sure we're going to have some more discussions. And I welcome anyone that has other questions or comments that they could reach out to you individuals and you know, seek that answer. But Terry?
Well, no, Dan, just a comment. Rebecca, thanks a lot for this handout. You put a lot of time and effort into this. See, last month, we had questions on the number of chairs, the number of murals, the locations, the artists, a lot of cost questions.
Mm-hmm.
This is the presentation that we should have had last month, okay? Because this answers a lot of the questions that we had. We didn't have those last month. But having said that, and this is just my own personal opinion, I think there's been a lot of discussion on this, a lot of adverse discussion or comments and stuff. So, I mean, there's been things on the radio, articles in the newspapers, editorials in the newspapers. So I think going forward, this is gonna be a tough sell for you guys, this project here. So what you might wanna do, and this is just a suggestion, is to try to scale this down. Perhaps talk to municipalities, see if there could be some cost sharing, like Dan suggested, and then reduce the amount. See if you can get that to go. I mean, this is a new project. It's kind of a pilot thing. Scale it back. See if it takes off, and then possibly expand on it. Just a suggestion.
I don't think that the project would have value if we scale back any further, to be honest. You know, the Livingston County project was 9 murals at $300,000 to do those 9 murals. I think that it wouldn't make sense to do any less than 5. It's a county-wide tourism project, so that's just my opinion. But I think anything less would really take away from the tourism factor.
Okay, but if a community really wanted these chairs or murals, why wouldn't they share part of the cost? And I don't think that avenue has been explored as much as I would have liked to have seen it explored.
I could give you one reason why, is every single one of these communities is strapped for cash. And I'm not saying the county isn't, but we have a specific reserve, we have a specific account that's for creating tourism destination and attraction things. And that this fits exactly into what that funding is meant for. And so, you know, when you go, you got to go to a community and say, can you scrape together $5,000 or $10,000? You know, in the skin, you know, for these little communities, oh, well, where am I supposed to get that? I didn't budget for that last year. Where am I supposed to pull that from? Well, can you try to put it in your budget for next year? I mean, it's a bigger lift. And I agree. I almost think if we don't do this, then maybe we just drop it and we'll move on. We're trying to be creative. We're trying to think outside of the box. We're trying to do some things that we've seen done in other communities that work. And, you know, here we've put a lot of work into it this far. If you guys say you don't want it, then you don't want it and we'll drop it.
Mark, look, it's an idea, and I think the thought is good, trying to promote tourism. I don't disagree with that. But as far as the local municipalities, a lot of the municipalities do have ARPA funding that they haven't spent. Perhaps they would use some of their ARPA funding, unspent funding on projects such as this, at least on a cost sharing basis.
Well, that's
with
what
the
that
county.
match is in there. We're going to try to scrape together another $35,000
Well, that's from
from
foundations.
municipal foundations, the IDA partnership, wherever we can get it.
Okay.
We'll go to the communities.
Okay.
We'll see if we can scrape some money from them.
It's just a thought. It's just a
I know.
suggestion to reduce the cost.
And I did ask them to send this packet in your email to all of the legislators. So when we meet for caucus, hopefully everybody would have checked their email and actually read some of this documentation, so that group will be informed. I think you're right about, we really didn't have the basics for the last time we met. This way, we've already provided them with an opportunity to get the knowledge, whether they're pro or against, one way or another, I think.
They'll at least have the information.
They have the information, they'll read it, they'll make their decision, we'll know when we walk into the meeting.
I got one more.
Sure.
The breakdown is, what do we say, 15,000 per mural?
Yeah.
Has that been, that doesn't seem like a lot for a mural for me, to hire an artist who's, and I'm not saying a college kid or a high school, I'm not saying they're not artists, but I'm thinking who I've got in my mind is artists, even some local. That's a pretty big project to give somebody $15,000 for. Now, you hope there's some community spirit and some, but as far as just putting, artists are also particular to what they are gonna put up there because that's their signature on the building also. So have
So
we
where'd that
looked-
number come from?
That's from our consultants, and if you check out Livingston County's website, you'll see that there's were artists from all across the country and a few international, and that was the price that they did it at. So,
It
yeah,
just seems
that's-
low to me.
Yeah.
One thing I will publicly tell you two, yeah, there's been a lot of work and you've done your job, but our job, unfortunately or fortunately, is to make the decision for the people of Chautauqua County. I guarantee you, I'll look through the whole thing. I'll read it all. I'll review it. I didn't mean to be negative going into it, but I will promise you that I will look it all over and my decision will be based on more than just whether I don't like murals or chairs or whatever, so.
Understood.
That's.
Just as a question, are the chairs splittable from the murals, or is it all one package?
It was intended to be all one package, but if we just did murals, I think murals would be my number one choice if it had
Probably
to come
chairs
down
would
to
be
that.
mine.
Years,
Yeah,
the
but,
chairs.
you know.
How about murals of
Split
chairs?
decision.
Chairs with murals on them.
With an eclipse behind it.
You know, that's a good point, I suppose, and that could be a discussion item as if, you know, as we feel this out as a body, that say, hey, maybe we could consider doing one or the other, and I guess that could be determined, and I know that either of you would be ready to about face with what is directed, but I do applaud the presentation today and this discussion, and I think that we have to look at, again, the big picture of the use of those funds and what they're doing, and will this promote tourism? And I think that you have sold that thought today, in the sense that that's the hope. And I guess that's not an exact science, because who can forecast that, right? So, but I think that we would be checking the box that was our intent. So now it's just a matter of this, if this is a project that we would be willing to do it. One thing that I can say is we do have the money, and there are no other projects being presented at this time, and we do want to spend that money, in the sense that we want to spend the money, get it to work in promoting tourism. And right now, there are no other projects that are in front of us. So one thing I'll say is, this is a project we're considering it, but bring other projects forward, okay? And we want to spend the money, we want to promote tourism. So we don't let this derail you either way, if it's yes or no. But bring other projects to us. We want to make sure that we're utilizing our funds. It's just like, you know, if we have money sitting in the general fund, we have it gaining interest in working for us so we can have a return. That money sitting in that reserve does us no good. We need to get projects going. We want to spend it so we can promote tourism and bring in more money and refill that thing. So that's a good point. So.
No, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a very black and white person, and when you say something's artsy to me, and how do I know if I've been successful in that? Is there any place we can measure, saying, last year, 5,000 people came to the festival in Westfield, But this year, we had the mural, we had the other things going on, and 10,000 people came. You know, it's very difficult for me to measure success. And then, I mean, we have that festival and it rains, and nobody comes, and so it's hard for me to do that.
Could we get one of those in 3 months and put it in the clip stations, charge rent on it? You know, we could pay for this, you know.
Can I make one comment too? Because
Sure.
this project came out of a challenge really from the county executive. Said, look, we have a pretty healthy reserve. Why don't you guys come up with some concepts, some ideas? Think outside of the box.
And that's
And
why I
we
wanted to
went
make
to him
that
and we
point.
presented, and he was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So anyway, that's,
I remember your comment on that on day
Yeah.
one, and
Yeah.
I wanted to reiterate that
Yeah,
myself.
thank
Because
you.
that's, we want the projects and we want to get the money out there. We don't want the money sitting in a reserve. That's not why we collect it and have it, so.
okay.
Any other comments, questions? Everyone good?
I'll talk to you about wine trail and stuff, because we've had a bunch of academic studies, and it's just repeating what you guys have said, but we've got 20 years of data on this kind of thing.
Mhm.
And it is a holistic thing. It's not just a winery or wineries, it's the town, it's the restaurant, it's pride in communities, and people sense that. And when it all works together, it works.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well said. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything under other, or is there any other form of business to be conducted
Be
today?
careful of the snow there. Should still snow.
If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that was wonderful. Anyway, that's interesting.